Hello, fiends, and welcome to the Monster Party Podcast, now a part of the Fangoria Podcast Network. For more information about the network, including other programs, how to follow the show, and find past episodes of Monster Party, please visit Fangoria.com. And now, it's party time. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special white-hot, star-studded celebrity edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party! Monster Party!
No, Dr. Phelps. Don't leave the island without the serum.
It is star-studded.
Wow.
Star-studded.
Yeah, that was like a grenade of talent just hit me.
It was. And who are you, speaking of talent?
I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stothe.
And I'm James GONIS.
And we have an amazing show for tonight.
An amazing
Yes, we
show,
do.
Shawn.
Oh, so good.
We have a gentleman on here tonight who we've been trying to get for a while, and is just I am a huge fan of. We're all
Me too.
fans of.
Now-
you may know him as Jack Deth,
Yes.
as
Deth.
Dollman,
Dollman.
as the Sarge,
The Sarge.
as many other amazing roles. Ladies and gentlemen, actor Tim Thomerson.
Tim Thomerson.
But if that's
Thank you,
not
gentlemen.
enough, we have
There's more?
a returning guest. This guy is a writer, director, a film historian, a great lover of the kind of
A great lover.
of the kind of stuff we love. We are
love this
talking
introduction.
about C.COURTNEY Joyner.
C.COURTNEY Joyner! Big lover. Yeah.
Being back with us, Courtney.
So yes, both of these guys. We are just thrilled to have you guys.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for making the Monster Party scene.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Tim Thomerson.
Tim Thomerson.
Tim Thomerson. Where
Rolls off the tongue.
do we begin?
I know.
Really?
Maybe from the beginning?
Yeah. Well,
Nobody could ever get my name right, so...
So, all right. No, did we completely ruin it, or did we did it right?
No,
Is it-
the name Thomerson was either Thumperson, Thornson, Thumperson. What the hell's the guy's name? Even on the spot I did on the only time I did Carson with Johnny Carson, he was what the hell is the kid's name? He couldn't say it right. And in the service, it was really bad. It was Thumperson. What God damn it, what's this guy's name? Anyway, the name Thomerson.
So once the whole name thing cleared up, you were well on your way to stardom.
Well, I don't know my way to jail. No, it was just a difficult name because there's like a. It's just really that important.
I know.
Actually, no.
Did you ever think about changing the name to like Chad Blaze or something like that?
Chad Blaze?
Yeah, how about that?
Can you imagine Chad Blaze as Dollman?
Hi, I'm Chad Blaze.
Chad Blaze is death.
Anyway,
Kinda-
yeah.
All right, so you got your name, okay?
So you got your name. You're armed with your name and a headshot.
Yeah.
It's Joseph Timothy Thomerson. That's the name.
Is that's like your SAG official name?
That's yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's on the death certificate, the birth certificate. I died yet?
No.
Looking good for a
Well,
corpse.
it depends on what movie you're talking about.
Yeah.
I guess.
At
Yeah.
any rate,
Well,
yeah,
but Tim,
Thomerson.
I wanted to talk about you started actually kind of in stand-up comedy, right?
Yes, we are brothers in the stand-up.
Yes, because
Wait, Tim, you did stand up?
I did stand up.
A lot of it.
I did it for about 15 years, 20 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
Yeah, that started on Ball Road off the 5 on the way to Disneyland at a place called the Jolly Ox.
Wow.
It was in 1967 or 8.
Wow.
And how that all came about, I was a waiter, and there was a guitar player. It was kind of a popular place in Orange County. And so I would go on before the singer and just sort of make fun of people, and kind of riff.
Oh.
And then, like, people would come and I got a little audience.
Yeah.
And
They tell you to stop it, or
No, they liked it, right?
oh, they liked it.
Yeah.
yeah, they liked it. And if I didn't even remember what I was saying, I could do the Charles Bronson impression. Was about all I had, and I think I did something about Disneyland and people being crushed.
You got to give us a taste. Give us a taste. Disney will never find out about this.
A taste of what?
A little bit of Charles Bronson, yeah.
I dug 17 tunnels with my face.
Brilliant.
Oh my
Brilliant.
gosh.
No more
Fantastic.
Indian parts. No more fucking Indian parts. You better cut that one out. Right?
No.
Oh, no, that's gold.
There. Sorry about that.
That's gold.
No.
So you did stand-up comedy.
Brian James, if you remember Brian,
Sure.
he was a great
yes.
director.
Yeah.
We were in the reserves together in the California National Guard, and every summer we would have to go to Barstow. This was during the Vietnam War, and we'd have to do our summer camp. So the Jeeps would circle around. We were an armored division, and they would circle around, and Brian and I, everybody was drunk and crazy, and Brian and I used to do these skits, which were just bits of just kind of Jonathan Winters stuff. And that's kind of how it started.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then years after that, it was called Open Mic Night. They didn't have those. The Troubadour had like a Monday night thing. Sally Mars, who was Lenny Bruce's mother.
Yeah.
She had a place on Santa Monica, the Ye Little Club where Joan Rivers used to go and perform. Then there was a place called The Factory. Every Monday night that you could go. And this was like between 68 and 69, 70. I started kind of pursuing being a stand-up.
And is this like this is pre like the Comedy Store and pre the Improv?
That was still
Yeah.
Zeros or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, way before. There were no comedy because there was the Slate Brothers in the 50s. And Red Fox had a club. On La Cienega. And he was very good guy. He was very nice to all the comics. And there was not a lot of comics back then. Steve Martin was the main guy.
Right.
And Cheech and Chong were just getting started.
Right.
There's a guy named Tony Russell, a very funny guy.
Talk about a great time to be doing it too.
Yeah, it was fun because it was wide open. I mean,
Yeah.
it was still the 60s, you know. It's still pretty wild and nuts in Los Angeles.
I can only imagine
Los
what that was
Angeles
like.
area. It was pretty wild back then. So that I was always interested in stand-up as a kid, you know, being a first-generation television watcher. And James and I were talking about, you know,
Star Trek.
Jonathan Winters and Frank Gorshin. These are the guys I grew up watching. And Richard Pryor. And so
Probably my single favorite comic of all time.
I think so, that Richard and Jonathan Winters are the two guys that highly influenced me.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Then years later, Pryor was responsible for me getting a car wash. And,
Is that right?
yeah,
Awesome.
he introduced me to the director, Michael Schultz, who got me a car wash, and then Which Way Is Up. And
Wait, but is that how you started to get into it? It's a car wash? Was
In
that
acting
like
or
in acting? Yeah,
stand-up?
in acting.
No, the acting thing, it kind of ran together. I got out of the service in 67, or out of my training, basic training, out of Fort Ord in 1967. And I needed a job, so a friend of mine was working at the Shakespeare Festival down in San Diego. It was a famous festival down there. And I had no intention of becoming an actor. I didn't know. But I met this actor, Anthony Zerbe, who was playing Iago at the time.
Oh, we love Anthony Zerbe. Yeah. Great guy.
And he was real approachable, and I got kind of interested in it. And I was working backstage as a prop guy, and I was on stage handing Zerbe a lantern in Othello. So I remember we were on stage, and we were down stage left, and Zerbe goes, "Oh, look at that blonde on the left in the front row there. Look at her." And I went, "Wow, he just..." That blew my mind because he said it while we were on stage.
Yeah.
Guy handing him this lantern.
Classically trained.
Get away with that? You know? So I used to talk to him. Then I started getting interested in acting. But he was basically mentored me well into my career. You know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Was Car Wash one of your first like kind of big mainstream roles, or did you?
Well, my first role was Mannix.
Mannix.
Ah.
Nice.
Zerbe got me a job on Mannix, and Bill Bixby directed it.
Wow.
And it was really cool, and it was really, really fun to be working on. It was Punk 3, I remember that.
Because you kind of
The most memorable punk.
My cohort was Danny Rogers, the famous stunt guy, really good dirt bike rider that I later used to ride dirt bikes with. But he was Punk 4. We used to laugh. But,
you used to say I'm Punk 3 and you're
but
Punk
Mike
4.
Connors was such a good guy, and Bixby was such a neat guy. But that was my first on-camera deal. Not on camera, that's not true, because I got my union card in New York on Serpico. So I got my SAG card on Serpico, because Zerby had told me. I said, "Well, how do I become an actor? How do I do this? And how do you?" He said, "Well, you got to study." I said, "We study. How do you?" What? I never read a book except Catcher in the Rye and Argosy magazine.
Good taste.
I Cliff Notes. I didn't go to school. I was kind of a ski bum, surf guy, army guy, restaurant worker. So he said, "You must study. You have to learn the craft of acting." I didn't even know what that meant. So he turned me on to Stella Adler, and she would come out from New York and spend 6 weeks on the Melrose Theater back in the 60s giving a course. Mm-hmm. So I studied with her 2 summers in a row. Then something happened. I started to get what this is about. I sort of didn't know how to act, but she was very encouraging with me, and so I decided. I said, "Well, I'm going to do this. I got to go to New York and study." So now we're talking about 1971. I moved back to Manhattan and studied with Stella, and at the same time, I was doing stand-up.
This is like again stand-up boom.
Pre what?
Stand-up boom.
Big time. But when I did go work or went to the Improv in New York on 43rd Street, the old Improv. That's where I met Leno, Richard Lewis, Elaine Boozler was the door girl. Danny Aiello was the doorman.
Danny Aiello was the doorman.
Wow.
And then there was Brenner was the hot guy. Woody Allen would walk in every once in a while. Wow. So and I remember meeting Richard Lewis and Belzer kind of at the same time. And I was at this my hair had finally grown out, so I had this kind of long surfer-looking California individual and amongst these ethnic folk from the East Coast,
What did they make of you?
And so they were going, "Who's this guy?" So I used to hang around with these guys, and to this day, the camaraderie with comics, and I think you'll agree with this, is a lot deeper than with actors, I think. There's something about working in the stand-up world.
There's a little less cutthroatness about you know what I mean? Like the relationship between a comic?
Yeah, but still, it's all acceptable.
Well, yeah, right. It's almost like that's a joke in and of itself.
Yeah, that's a whole other joke.
Yeah. That's what I love about all my years in stand-up is that I can pretty much go to almost any town in the United States.
Any town?
Any town. And go to, relatively big... Yeah, yeah.
I just want to make sure you weren't kicked out of any town.
25-person populace.
Sure.
Except for Bayonne. Except fucking Bayonne.
No, they don't want me there. Oh, shit. No, they know what they did. But yeah, it's like you can go to all these places and go to the comedy club, and there's 5 people that you've worked with because, you do it long enough and you run into everybody.
Right.
But it's great.
I left the stand-up world. My goal was to do the Carson show. Then after that, I just kind of dabbled in it. But I reached a certain level of what I wanted to do with it. I did stand-up for myself because
best way to do it.
Interested in, how do you pull this off? How does that guy... How does Frank Gorshin do that? How does Carson... How do they do this,
Tim, one of the first things I think I saw you in, it was probably this, I guess, mid-'70s. I don't know what the show was. I was watching television.
Was it stand-up?
It was you doing stand-up where you were reenacting a Sam Peckinpah film.
Oh, yeah.
You were doing the slow motion. And it was it was so cool. It was the first time I saw a comic kind of referencing a filmmaker's style. It was just so awesome. I remember
before he worked with Sam Peckinpah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, you worked with Sam Peckinpah too? Oh my gosh,
that's awesome!
That's actually where we first met.
You guys, that's how you guys met.
Well, what a perfect segue,
weekend, right?
Yeah,
the Osterman weekend.
Yep.
Wow!
Don't forget Mr. Joyner over here, ladies.
No. Yeah.
Tell us the story, you two.
Yes.
Not much of a story.
Oh, come on.
Well,
Hi, I'm C. Courtney.
Did you talk to me then? Because I don't remember.
Well, I saw you on your motorcycle at a distance, and I recognized you from Don Kirshner.
Well, that's what it was. Don Kirshner's rock concert at the Midnight Spectacle.
Oh, yeah, I told you that. Well, Courtney, what was
I want to thank Saul Mosenstein for Kama Sutra Records.
Oh, yeah. All right. What was your role in the film, Courtney?
I had done a little documentary about Sam when I was at USC, and so I got to know him. And he was in kind of bad physical shape, and he was trying to have his comeback and all that stuff. And anyway, they just kind of engendered me to go and hang out on the set and be a general little errand runner and what have you. So it was neat. But the film was made in kind of a slightly tense circumstance.
Yes, I heard it was kind of a troubled production. Yeah.
And
Panzer Davis, yes.
Panzer Davis, exactly. And Sam was having his conflicts with them, and his main guy was a really nice fellow named Walter Kelly, who kind of was basically running interference to try and get the movie done as best they could for the money that they had. And so it was a lot of young guys who all loved Sam Peckinpah, and we were all running around doing little errands and things. And so I got to hang out a little bit. Got to watch him direct Burt Lancaster.
Wow.
Yeah,
My
that
circumstance with that particular situation was there's this great friend of mine who's passed now. His name is Tom Huff. He was a stunt guy. And I suggest anybody listening to this to punch him up and look at him.
Tom Huff.
Tom was from North Hollywood. He was the pro fighter after he got out of the service, and he fought down here at the Olympic Auditorium. And he was real good friends with Judo Gene LaBelle. And Huff got his start from the fight game from Conrad on Wild Wild West. He had seen him fight. And I had done this movie called Take This Job and Shove It. Tommy was one of the stunt guys on it. And I used to ride dirt bikes with Huff and this other guy, Danny Rogers, I was telling him from Mannix. So Huff said kind of, hey, Tim, I really know shit. I'm doing this fucking movie. And they need a fucking actor who can ride a bike. So you fucking help me out. What do you think? That's exactly how he talked.
Are you? But that's how it happened.
No, yeah, because I used to ride dirt bikes.
Sure.
You know. Huff says, yeah, and Huff said, I fucking, you don't be a Hollywood phony. I mean, can you do the fucking thing? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So, well, who's the director? He says, it's fucking Peckinpah. It's fucking. And I lost it. I said, Peckinpah?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Uh-huh.
Sam Peckinpah? He says, yeah. And Tommy had coordinated Convoy.
Right.
So he was the coordinator on Convoy. And Peckinpah loved Huff. So on the set, I come in and in the scene, I pull Craig T. Nelson over.
Craig T. Nelson?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The movie has an amazing cast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rutger Hauer,
In that movie. Yeah, Rucker, yes.
John Hurts.
But at any rate, what
Charo.
happened was we're down on Jefferson, down by Slauson, right?
Yep.
Down there.
That's right.
So Huff brings me up to Peckinpah. He says, this is Tim. He's going to tell him what you're going to do. And Sam never looked at me. He was smoking a cigarette. He says, he's got a bandana on, those shades. And he says, okay, kid, this is what I want you to do. You see that bridge right over there? I want you coming in 90 and sliding.
Wait.
And I went, what? He went, yeah. And Huff's going, yeah, don't fuck it up. And I went, wait a minute, excuse me, sir, I'm not a stuntman, I'm an actor. Then he looked at me and said, you're an actor, huh? And it was a setup. Huff set me up. But it was just, it was a classic, and the fact that Peckinpah was in on the gag, on the joke, it was pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun. And Tommy Huff was one of the great. In fact, I just saw him the other day in Hooper, the old Burt Reynolds movie.
Oh yeah.
He was a great stunt guy, and anybody's listening out there, IMDb him. Check him out.
Now
That scene actually now strikes the fear in the heart of every member of the WGA. Because do you remember what you say to Craig T. Nelson? You're giving him a ticket for strident writing.
For what?
Strident writing. He was
Strident writing
he's a
that's a
screenwriter, remember?
writer's
And you
term.
pull him over, and he says, "What's this ticket for?" He says, "Your writing is too strident." Yeah.
Well, that was a hint because of the
That's right, yeah,
piece,
because
right?
you're a spy and you're
Right,
inviting
yeah,
him out
I'm
to the house. But
CHP
that's it.
spy.
Strident writing is why you're
Wow.
giving him the ticket.
And I had a big Electric Glide Blue type motorcycle, so I was used to riding dirt bikes, and I kept putting my foot down, trying to lean it over, and Huff's going, "What are you doing, man? You're going to dump that thing." Because you have to be plumb mounted on it, like riding a Harley. You can slide it around. But anyway, that's another.
Wow.
Now, you two are both big Westerns fans. Now, did you hit it off immediately when you met on that movie?
I didn't really meet. Courtney
We really
yet.
didn't. I just saw him. I just admired from a distance.
Yeah,
and
because you were like you were like a little errand boy.
Fantasized.
You were,
Okay,
you were,
one
day.
working,
All right,
working for
Doritos, no.
Back this
right?
back this story up.
Okay.
Yes.
It started with a series of phone calls.
We actually met through Robert Ginty.
Wow.
Really?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
For
we
Vietnam,
did a movie called Vietnam,
Texas.
Texas.
Very good movie. Good
Vietnam, Texas.
Very good.
Okay.
The original name was The Orange Curtain.
The Orange Curtain, exactly.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hang S. Noor
Yeah.
was in it, and Tamlin Tomita, and Burt Remsen,
Burt Remsen. one of
Richard
them,
Mazer,
Richard.
Richard Masur, yeah.
Charo? Was Charo in that?
Charo, of course. And
Burt Remsen was a boy. Was
Burt
he?
Remsen.
These are all great
guy.
manly
He was-
names,
he
by
was
the
a
way.
Burt Remsen.
Burt Remsen.
But Remsen was
He was
like,
one of Altman's.
Yeah, he was
Altman
like-
used
Is that
him
right?
in every
Altman
movie he
movies.
ever did.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of Altman, I'd like to ask you a little bit about A Wedding, because that was the movie that made me an Altman fan. You were one of like 48 characters
That's
in
right.
that movie. And I think you played like Carol Burnett's brother-in-law.
No, I was part of the Bean family. My
Right.
name was Russell Bean. I think I was.
Russell.
You were married, but you
I
were
was
hitting
married
on
to one of Carol's daughters, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
But you were hitting on a bridesmaid,
That's right, and that was Van Heflin's daughter, Marta
Heflin. Right.
And how I got that job, going back this truncated conversation to stand up, Altman had seen me, or maybe one of his associates had seen me on Midnight Special or Don Kirshner, one of the rock concert deals, or one of the Friday night things they used to have for stand-ups, that we all did back then. Us older guys, not you young cats. But, man, not you young cats.
Hey, man.
So just let me chunk my way. No, at any rate, that job was really interesting because he gave me this role in A Wedding. He just gave it to me. So we shot that in Waukegan, Illinois, where Jack Benny's from, at the Armour Meat Mansion. Now, this is old money we're talking about, this beautiful old mansion on Lake Michigan. And on that movie was an incredible cast. And Carol Burnett and Victoria Gasman and
Lillian Gish.
Lillian Gish.
Victoria-
Lillian Gish.
Yeah, Lillian Gish. And
Howard
John-
Duff.
Howard Duff, right.
Howard
great
Duff
Howard
was
Duff.
Howard and Dennis
Mia Farrow.
Mia Farrow. Dennis France had he was a security guy through the whole thing. He was in the whole thing, and what a great guy. That was his first thing. He had just come back from Vietnam, and he got this job. And he wanted to be an actor, and it was the part of the Steppenwolf theater crew were in that movie.
Yeah, because Gary Sinise and John
Gary-
Malkovich were both extras in it. And,
Oh, they were.
Oh, there you
I
go.
didn't know. I knew
Yeah.
that's.
and they were
wow.
from Steppenwolf.
That's right. They were Steppenwolf
Now, I've seen
guys.
the movie a million times. I haven't been able to
One
Well, we
million
shot
times.
in.
I love that movie.
We shot at a
Wow.
big cathedral, and we were there. I mean, we spent the entire summer there. And Charlie Chaplin's daughter, Geraldine, she was such a nice person. She was unbelievable. She would have a little get together every Sunday because I didn't stay in the hotel where everybody else. I could stay in an apartment off base from the rest of everybody because I knew that the drinking would be too much. But I went to Bob because there was no script. So I was kind of nervous because what was I going to say? And fortunately, studying with Stella Adler, I had found a way to make this character work. And when I went up to Bob, I said, "Hey, listen, what do you want me to do?" He said, "Look, you're with Carol. Get together with Carol and those actors, and you guys just work out your scenes together." So that's basically what we
Wow.
did.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
So we shot, and Carol was so handy and
Yeah.
so giving, and such a generous person as an actor. Paul Dooley was the father, and he was what a great guy.
Love
He
him.
played Carol's husband.
Yeah,
He's great.
Yeah, and I think personally that it's an unsung Altman movie. It's that people don't know. I mean, people know about it if you're an Altman fan, but I think it's worth seeing again because there's some really good stuff. And Pam Dauber, that's where I first met Pam, and she was she was in that.
There's a lot in there.
It's really an interesting movie.
You don't really get a sense of the whole story unless you've seen it multiple times. And I know my co-hosts are going to tease me about having seen this movie a million times.
No.
But you've
come
never
on.
seen an episode of Star Trek.
No.
Busy,
true.
I was busy watching A Wedding. There is one aside that I will bring up. A Wedding is the only major motion picture I've ever seen with an appearance of Famous Monsters magazine, because there's a bunch of ushers, and a kid
right.
does a photobomb by holding up Famous Monsters magazine.
Oh my god, I love that
So
movie.
it finally officially is
the
able to be
front
mentioned in our podcast.
right.
I've been waiting for 45 minutes.
A nerdy kid with glasses.
The nerdy kid with the glasses What's the frog movie with Ray?
Frogs.
Frogs.
I love
I
frogs.
love that movie.
And the kid,
Robert
who was
Altman
the nerdy
directed that,
kid
right?
in the
No.
movie,
If
he
you
was
see-
nutty
Yeah.
monster movie
And
nut
he
guy.
goes on this tangent about frogs, and he's trying to get the other ushers excited about seeing it. And it's like, oh,
Really?
dude.
Okay,
See,
now I
now-
have to see
I
that.
have to see this movie now.
I know.
I have to, and it's called The Wedding?
A wedding.
A wedding.
Yeah.
I've heard
Matt-
of it. Yeah,
Matt-
I just,
A scene where someone discusses the movie Frogs.
But a famous
Wow.
but a famous Monsters magazine.
I know, it's
But
incredible.
what's so weird about that particular issue of FM, as we know,
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
is
You know the issue that he's talking about?
yeah,
sure.
oh,
The
of
movie.
course.
but they actually had Ken Kelly repaint the one sheet to the movie. It's not the one sheet. It's not the original poster.
No way.
Ken Kelly.
So was the hand added?
Oh yeah, no, the hand is there. The hand
Yeah.
is as it is, but it's Ken Kelly.
wow.
Yeah,
Oh, my
yeah, it's kind of
God.
a weird,
This is so terribly
weird thing
inside.
that they
I
did.
can't take it. I got
So it's kind
There's
of
a movie called Frogs.
we're
It's a
super-
great.
I gotta
no,
go.
no. It's got an Academy Award winner in it.
know
Come
that?
on. Come on.
know
But
that.
also,
You know
hey,
everything.
but here's the other thing about
Now you're
a
on our
wedding
turf.
is that this man
Yeah, enough of this wedding
Also-
shit. Come on.
does scenes with the director of one of his favorite Bogart movies,
Oh, Cromwell.
John Cromwell.
John Cromwell.
Oh my God.
Dead Reckoning.
The bishop. He was like 90 years old, and
Yeah.
he was,
He
about to
was
pass
90
away.
years old.
Wow.
And Lillian Gish was she neat.
It must have been a kind of a sort of pinch yourself kind of career phase where you're like, Jesus
Well,
Christ,
at
the people
time
that I'm
when you're
working
in-
with.
At the I mean, I was such an Okie, you know. I was just tight. Where you want me to go now? How much do I get?
I'm here to do the actoring.
I never. At the time when you're doing it, I never really thought about that. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly when I met Dina Merrill and Chaplin and these people and Howard Duff, and I said, yeah, this is pretty high cotton stuff here. And what was really neat is how nice everybody was. Vittorio Gassman, who I had seen, and I suggest anybody out there to see the real Scent of a Woman, the one that he did in Italy, which is have you ever seen it?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
That's wonderful.
And he was such a great guy. And then the Altman family, too, getting involved with Bob's kids. I got to know very well. Steve and Mike became pretty good friends of mine. So I met some great people on that show. And your question about pinching myself, now that I think about it, I go, yeah, well, that was...
Pretty awesome. Yeah, that's pretty. That's
I mean, coming out of acting school and then getting that job because the guy saw me do stand-up, you know.
Yeah.
And then
really.
working with Carol Burnett, and I mean, I was like, geez, I mean...
All right. So
when you're doing it at the time, you're just doing the work. You're not really flashing on it. You know?
When I did stand up from a showcase that I did, I ended up nabbing a role on Cousin Skeeter, which I believe you worked on as well. It's a kid's show called Cousin Skeeter.
I don't remember that.
It's in your IMDb. That's all I can tell you.
Cousin Skeeter, was I in that? What the
all
hell
right,
was that?
it's okay.
It's like
Was
a
that
kid's
Jim
show.
Varney?
It was like a kid's show on one of these channels. Cousin Skeeter was a puppet.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
You know, but we want to get to the great stuff here. So look, you've been in. So you
Cut to Metal Storm.
Excuse me.
No. We just
No, we're going to talk about my episode of Cousin Skeeter.
We just talked about a wedding, okay, with Mr.
right.
Robert Altman.
You didn't even
okay?
know what the movie was.
No, but it has Famous Monsters magazine in it. For God's sake.
But Wedding led direct to a very, very cool thriller. Absolutely terrific. You're terrific in it. Remember My Name,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, with who's
which
the
Bob
director?
Altman produced, which
Yeah,
is
that's true.
great.
That was really fun work.
Remember My Name,
Remember My Name with Anthony Perkins. And,
Courtney. What was that? What was the subject matter of that?
Well, it was Geraldine.
Geraldine Chaplin
Again.
had been married to Anthony Perkins from Psycho, as
Right.
you know, and she just got out of the pen, and he's remarried, and she's wreaking revenge on him.
But it's a serious, like, stalk and
it's
kill
a real
movie.
noirish type deal, and the director was
Alan Rudolph.
Oh, Alan Rudolph. Okay.
Alan Rudolph,
protege.
and working with Anthony Perkins that's a pinch me moment. But I'll tell you,
Yeah.
this guy was such a neat guy, and working with Geraldine again too was great. But all my scenes were with him, and he was such an interesting actor. We were shooting in Venice at this little house. They set the camera up, and he was an architect. So he took a piece of plans for a house, and he took the plans and he put them like at a Dutch angle, and had somebody go out and get a bag of Fritos, and Fritos has that yellow color, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Very distinct.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at him, and he set all this up himself. This is this actor who's been around a long time, Mr. Bates. So I asked him, I said, what do you... He says, well, I want to set up all my own circumstances because that I'm an architect and the Frito bag will read because it's loud and all he did was just sit there in the scene. He was just sitting there kind of musing, thinking about stuff. And then a rock comes through the window. But the fact that he took the time to set up his own circumstance,
right,
his own surroundings,
right, all on his own, he just did that, yeah.
Telling the director or set dressing, he did it.
This is definitely a movie to seek out with
it's a pretty good movie.
score.
Jeff Goldblum's in it.
And a score by Oscar Peterson.
That's right.
Wow.
And
Wow.
sung
Sounds
by
great.
that great
Alberta Hunter.
our great blues singer.
Yep. Don't you play a cop in that?
No, I play a construction
worker guy. Okay. Yeah.
Ooh.
But you have that kind of big, manly, physique kind of cop thing about you, though.
Listen, good, you filthy. No.
What do you pumps like you doing?
I played cops, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, I went to...
Was he stinking screws? I played cops before.
Right there.
Yeah, I was a psychologist.
Yes, Fade to Black.
Well, Christopher, he was in.
Tell us about Fade to Black.
Was in
So Fade to Black,
that's
though.
That's an interesting... That was kind of coming out...
Great premise.
Yeah.
A serial killer who kills people because he's obsessed with movies.
Yeah.
So he takes on the persona of movie characters as
I can't
he kills
relate to this
people.
at all.
Yeah, exactly.
If only they had podcasts back then.
Yeah. And the star of it is
Dennis Christopher.
Dennis Christopher from
really good.
Breaking Away.
Yeah.
right.
And he did a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's a very good actor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He did the bicycle movie.
Yeah.
Breaking
Away. And then, he hasn't really been in he showed up in the Tarantino movie a couple of years ago.
He did. He's very good. He's in Django. He's very good.
Danny Bilton and DeMeo, they would hire him for Viper, and I think he was doing some episodic stuff. But what a good guy.
Yeah.
And the funny kid. He was
Yeah.
like-
Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke, yeah.
that's right.
Who was how old in that thing? Had to be it looks like he's like a teenager almost.
Yeah.
Dennis or Mickey?
Mickey,
yeah.
He was great. Yeah,
That natural,
Was he
threatening charm.
Was he a bit of a punk? You just
no,
wanted
he was a cool guy.
come
He
here.
had just come back
Rourke, come
from being in the Cimino movie that cost so much money.
yeah.
Just
right.
come back from that. And I think this was a pre-commitment, because he was a nothing role, and he gets killed. Was he dressed as
In
Hopalong
Fade to
Cassidy?
Black. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But no, Mickey was. I saw him years later, and I said, "Yeah, we were doing some weird movie." And I said, "You remember me, man?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm an actor. You're an actor, right?" And I said, "Yeah, well, we're in this movie here, And I said, "Do you remember Fade to Black?" And he goes, "Oh man, yeah." And then my wife had worked with him. And
It was Irwin Yablans.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This was Irwin.
Absolutely was, yeah.
Yeah.
Irwin talked to me about doing a remake of that several times. And I always was like, man, now
How would you do it
what you
now?
could do with it
Yeah.
and actually
Yeah.
put him into those clips,
Yeah,
really
Right.
create
Oh, that's true.
that world would be
Right.
so wonderful. I don't know why it's never
Because
worked out.
in this film, as he's doing a lot of this stuff, you see clips from the movies he's referencing.
Like Men in Plaid.
Right.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
intercut
Vampire
it.
movie.
But now you
But
could,
but let's not forget there's a very special scene in that movie that I really enjoy. Is there's quite the harmonica solo, which
Yes,
that was
indeed.
something I did not know that you were
Well, yeah, I used to
accomplished
mess
in the
Well, I
harmonica.
don't know about accomplished. I was I was a blues head when I was a kid, and still am. So I would mess around with them.
Do you still
No.
You whip out the old harmonica at night
I don't know
or
what the
something?
slang is. Do you still work the harm or the? I don't know.
I play on still Paul Butterfield, baby. You know what I'm saying? No, I don't. But I still have one in my truck. I always have one.
Could you go out to your truck?
In case you have
Can we drive you back to your home?
I drive up to Boise and play my harp. No, I used to. I was into it for a while.
All right.
Paul Butterfield was the reason I became.
I enjoyed it. That was like I was like, oh wow, hey.
All right, so you do a little harmonica thing.
And I was a coke snorting harmonica psychologist for the police department. We shot that in Venice, and I remember James Luisi, if you know who James Luisi
Oh,
is,
sure.
who was the cop on Rockford, right?
Absolutely.
And he was such a good guy, and he had put Starbursts, the candy.
Yeah.
He had a bunch of them. And
Yeah.
I think he set them right in front of me on the desk,
Okay.
and so I just started eating them. And he turned around, and I think he was going to use them in the scene. And I felt a little shitty about it later. I said, Jimmy, I'm sure. He said, no, that's okay. But I knew that, as an actor, he was going to sometime, make the choice to do
with a prop. Yeah.
So
have some doable action, in
some
the
business
scene.
with the candy.
Right.
But
So was the Coke that you snorted, was that also kind of like, oh, I didn't know this was for the scene later?
I never snorted any.
No. I mean, look, we're talking about this is like 1980. This is the Scarface days.
Yeah.
No,
But
no.
it was like an obligation, right? They had to work in Coke. And
There was other shows that the blow is real.
All right. Let's get to it.
No.
What was it? It was Manit, I think. It was Manit baby powder, right? That's what they used to
heck.
cut it with.
Right,
That's what I was
right.
told. I didn't know anything about it.
Well, do you know?
I freebase,
Matt?
so I don't know.
Okay.
I
No, he does not.
I don't do it now, but I did.
Damn,
I
bro.
did then.
Yes. There was an episode
That's pre-crack.
Yeah, that's right. Old school.
That's way old school.
Now,
Yeah.
backpedaling a couple of years.
Yes, sorry.
One of your earliest TV series roles was Quark.
Right.
Which is a year after
right.
Star Wars comes out, and everything is,
Everything-
I
we're
saw
all in
that.
space now.
It was one season.
It was one.
It was
No,
what?
It's not even a whole
shows.
season. Yeah.
How many?
Right.
8 shows.
8 I saw every show.
Buck Henry.
I never saw. I think I saw one.
Okay, but now look, no, we have to set this up though. Quark, what the premise of the
Richard
show?
Benjamin.
It takes place in outer
It was
space.
a garbage scow.
Yes,
right.
in outer
captained
space.
by Richard Benjamin in outer space.
And written by Buck Henry. And
Right. Mhm.
directed by most of them. Well,
Bruce Spilson?
Bruce directed a 2-parter that Ross Martin was in.
That's right.
yeah,
Yes.
Also,
Was it High
Johnny
Averback?
Cool.
High Averback.
And
yeah.
Joan Van Ark, right?
Yeah.
Isn't she
Right,
also in that one?
And,
Joan
and,
Van Ark.
and,
She's in one.
and I
Henry
think
Silva.
Henry Silva.
listeners
Henry
have
Silva. Yeah.
And the 2-parter had Henry Silva and Ross Martin in them. And Bruce directed one, but mostly High Averback,
Yeah,
who was
right.
just unbelievably a funny man.
what
a funny guy.
And people need to remember that this is at a time. I mean, after Star Wars, people were really hungry for anything that was outer space.
Science
Sure.
fiction, comedy, sitcom.
Exactly. And I remember watching this as a kid. And
Yeah,
I was
me
it had
too.
a bizarre group of characters, if I remember
There were the
correctly.
Barnstable twins.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Who are clones.
There were these 2 hot blonde twins, and they all kind of repeated each other.
And one's a clone and one isn't.
yeah, and they couldn't
And
figure
the
out.
problem is the captain can't figure out which one is the clone.
Yes.
This was also the era of
And it
Jiggle
was
TV.
in real life. I'm sorry, I interrupted somebody.
No, go ahead.
No,
You look like Oliver Stone.
I hear that a lot.
How did you get in this interview, for Christ's sake?
Yeah. On half the acid.
I was saying this is also the peak of the Jiggle TV era. So those
Sure, they're like
clones
Farrah
were
Fawcett kind of
strategic.
Yeah, hey,
Yeah.
work for me.
They were such identical twins. I could never tell them apart.
Yeah.
I never knew which one was who.
Well, it didn't really matter. I guess.
And that's where I met.
That's nice.
That's where I met Jeff Lewis. That was the first time I worked with Jeffrey Lewis.
But you played a very
tell us
interesting
about your role in
character
that.
because
I played
because
a half woman, half man.
now
Right.
Or instead of full jeans, Gene.
Yeah.
Gene.
your character's
Gene.
yeah, your character's name was Gene.
Yeah.
And at times you would be all kind of macho.
Right.
You go, "Hey, Captain, we're going to be doing this," and then
Didn't like that. The guy
You would-
would chick up.
and what? How would you check up?
Just go. Just act her out, Well, I can't do it now.
Aren't you an
Show.
actor?
I can't
Aren't you an
even-
actor?
I got a back brace on. I'm pushing 70. What are you, crazy?
Could you do the
I got
walk?
a drool cup over here, man. I'm wearing the pin. You want me to do a bit?
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, it
just
was a very
remember
feminine.
one
It
of
was a
the-
very
one
feminine.
thing that worked.
Yeah.
Did work as my hair was long. I would do the. If you'd be all, now listen, Captain, we got to do this, and then I would go.
Yeah, you did the air flip.
and then I would turn into J.E.N. instead of G.E.N.
Right.
Gene Peters and Gene Hackman. So anyway, it said on. I think it's on my shirt on the guy.
So when you played it, was that a fun role to do?
Oh man, yeah. I mean,
You did a good time with
Richard-
that?
oh,
Richard
yeah, it was so
Benjamin,
much
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Richard Benjamin and those guest guys, Ross Martin. I got
Yeah.
to work with him. And,
Yeah.
And
Henry Silva was in one.
yeah,
Yeah.
he what a neat guy. He had a cube of sugar. He was sucking on a cube of sugar. Johnny Cool's, and I'm working with Johnny Cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then Jeffrey Lewis, who
Great character actor.
Oh
Lots
man,
of
one of the
stuff.
greatest guys that you'd ever want to work with, and also a neat person. But I was going to school in New York and doing the stand-up stuff and trying to figure out, am I going to stay in New York and, be a theater guy? So I'm not really, there's too many words. And then I got fired from a play. So went to the show one time and Culpeper Cattle Company came on. I'm living in New York. And Brian James had already left New York, and he called me. He said, "Hey, man, I just got a gun smoke. You got to fucking come out here, man. It's fucking on suspicion. I can't believe it. Jim." I said, "Okay, yeah." And so I see Culpeper Cattle Company, and I had a real impression on me. And I said, "Yeah, that's what I want to do. I got to get out of here." Uh-huh. So after 3.5 years, and I completed my studies with Stella. Mm-hmm. I got my they owe me a certificate. Or I could send away for one.
Well, I think you're gonna need to make a call.
Yeah.
But you came back. You came out here, and then you got that role. Quark?
And Quark, no, that came much later.
Later.
That I came out. I came when I left New York because I was so showbizzed out for like 4 years. I'd been pursuing it.
Sure.
And I did some Army training movie back there in the stand-up, and I did this Education of Sonny Carson as an extra. I was in that, and then worked in Sing Sing Prison. That was a trip.
Wow.
So, doing stand-up or?
No, as an extra.
Oh, wow.
Because in New York, they didn't have the Screen Extras Guild. The SEG wasn't back there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to, I remember it was Michael Chinich and Don Phillips. They were the casting guys for Serpico. This was in New York. I walked in, it was an open call thing. And they said, "You want to be in this movie?" And I went, "Yeah." And they said, "Okay, you got to go down and join the union." So I went and that's how I got my SAG card.
You're kidding.
No.
Wow.
So that was like,
wow.
I think it was $230. That was 1972.
Right.
Do you remember what scene in Serpico?
Yes, distinctly remember. We shot up in Spanish Harlem, way over there by the Beverly Garland, but no.
100 feet away, basically.
So they usher us into this movie house, old funky movie theater, and there's an empty seat sitting next to me. And all of a sudden, Pacino's starting to saunders down. He sit right next to me.
Okay.
And I went, "Yeah, how's it going, man?" And he was, "Yeah, okay." He was all acted out. And I said, "Would you rather be doing this or Richard III?" And he just kind of stared at me. He didn't say anything, that kind of. So I think if you, in the opening shot, it shows all these cops sitting in. So if you freeze the frame, you might see me sit next to Pacino. I don't know. But later on, when we were getting our diplomas from graduating for the
Academy,
NYPD, the Academy, they put Pacino, then me, and then they switched it out, and they put a black guy, and took me out, and then put a black guy in. It has nothing to do with Quark at all.
No.
Anyway.
No.
Getting back to Quark.
Yeah.
Now,
So, who asked me that? Was that you who asked me that question?
It's okay. Just ignore me. It's
Look,
fine.
the one thing about Quark, Star Wars changed things, dramatically for the types of movies and television that were coming out. But your career sort of dovetailed with that. And Quark was, I think, your first step into the genre.
Into the genre stuff.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. But then Mork came out right after that.
Yep.
And,
Mork and Mindy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this was a pretty funny show, and the critics really liked it. But it was all about the numbers back then. There was the ratings and stuff. And I think it was 8:30 on a Friday night.
I watched it though.
Yeah,
I
me too.
as a kid, I watched it.
I watched every one.
Same, and I was bummed when it ended, and it was like, whoa, what
But how do you
happened?
cancel?
I was sitting in a restaurant down in Manhattan Beach one time while that show was on, and there was these two girls sitting there, and they were talking about the show, and I'm sitting there, and I'm going, I wonder if I should tell these chicks I'm the guy on the show.
Yes.
In my thinking, I'm going, that'd be too lame. I'm not going to do that. Sorry. Get real close to that mic. Sorry, I drifted off there.
Well, we'll put the drool cup a little closer too.
You should have pulled a Bob Crane on him, man. Oh my God, are you a fan? Yeah.
Okay, so back to Quark. Could you give us a on-set Gene anecdote?
And Richard was the one time Richard, he was a very funny man.
Yeah.
And I have all this hair on my chest, right? And Richard, he's getting frustrated because I'm Gening out.
Yeah.
And he grabs me. Mm-hmm. He goes, Gene, and then I just screamed in his face because he grabbed all the hair on my chest.
Oh my gosh!
He went, what did I? He was, are you okay? He didn't know what happened. In fact, the whole set kind of went, geez. I really did it. It was a yelp, But
I remember watching the pilot.
Yeah.
And in the pilot,
you do your own sort of female Jean voice. Whereas the rest of the series, they dub.
Paula Prentice.
Is that Paula Prentice?
No, it's Paula Prentice's sister.
Really?
Anne Prentice.
Anne Prentice. She did the voice.
Really?
Yeah.
So they dubbed her voice in.
Which
did I? So I was like,
in the pilot, it's you.
Like
Yes.
You were just talking like this.
That's what I remember, Matt.
And I have to say, I think that was funnier.
Yeah.
I have no memory of that.
Yeah.
Well,
I have never seen this thing. I saw it once. Like
You haven't seen?
I've never seen it.
We play them on a loop in this home.
Yes.
I should get the thing, right?
Yeah. We'll hook you up.
8 episodes.
Have they got any VHSs of those things?
We have some
16
cylinders.
millimeter of those deals?
Yeah. We've got a microfiche that you could look at.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out.
So after Quark.
So what's him as the 80s hit?
Yes.
You started to get into some other sci-fi horse.
Yes.
This was the kind of the years of Empire Pictures,
Right. Yeah.
and Full Moon.
Yeah.
I think now was Metal Storm the destruction of Jared Sin.
Metal Storm.
That was your first. I think that was your first
that was
Empire
my
film,
second
right?
leap into the sci-fi world.
1983, Sean.
Right.
1983.
My favorite title of any movie, I think.
Yeah, that should be the title of every movie.
It's
Metal
so great.
Storm, the director.
The destruction of Jared Sin. First of all, it's assuming that you know who Jared Sin is.
It was Michael Preston, wasn't he? Jared Sin, or was Jared Sin a disease or something? Was it a disease or something?
But Sean, this was really
Get that
important.
Jared Sin on you.
This was directed by Charles Mann.
That's right.
And this was
Zach Alberg.
Now, wasn't this also 3D though?
Yes, it was.
And this
3D
was.
boom
I'm
right
trying.
now, yeah.
People need to remember that there was like a craze, like a
mini 3D
It was a
renaissance.
mini 3D craze. Remember that?
Just
Well,
year.
that was. Remember, Charlie had done Parasite.
That's
Right,
right.
with
And
Demi
that
Moore.
was a big. Irwin distributed, and that had been a big success. And
Is that
that's
Demi
what
Moore in that?
you
No.
bet.
Yes,
I
yes.
was a PA on that damn thing, and that's what got Universal behind Metal Storm.
Was that distributed by Universal?
Absolutely,
It's
sure
true.
was.
It was.
Yeah.
It's from Metal Storm to Dollman versus Demonic Toys.
There you go.
See, we're just
from grace
No.
dare
deep
you?
down into.
How
no,
dare
I'm
you?
kidding,
We
I'm
just
kidding.
started.
What a glorious flight!
So Metal Storm, though. Metal Storm.
The Metal Storm was shot out in Moore Park, and we had the option of staying in a little funky hotel or coming back home every night, which I chose to come back home. But at any
Really?
rate,
You don't want to come on.
no,
spend the
I didn't
night?
want to stay out in
On the planet of Moore Park.
But
It would have helped you get into character or something, I thought.
the character was Rhodes,
Yeah.
and the thing that was interesting about that movie, the kid we worked with, Jeff Byron, a really funny guy and a really good guy, but Richard Mall was
All right,
on that
yeah,
movie.
right.
And Charlie had asked Richard to shave his head.
Uh-huh.
And he went, So he shaved his head. He was not happy about it. So then he went in and read for Night Court and ended up being on Night Court for, I'm sure he's sitting on the fantail of a yacht now with a blue drink with, like made a lot of money.
Yeah.
So by shaving his head, he got that role because he looked
Oh
so
wow!
weird.
Because he played like a Cyclops or something, right? He had like one eye.
One
or
eye.
something.
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
the story of Metal Storm.
So there's
How do you
Jared
describe?
Sin.
How do you describe the story?
Yeah, I mean, the basic gist of it, because it's just one of those things that's just so...
No, let's hear it.
No. I was
you
going to
got a
ask
story
you...
about it? I'd like to hear it.
No.
I don't know what shit about it.
Sean?
It's kind of confusing, but it's kind of like Jared Sin is this megalomaniacal kind of warlord who.
But you know that.
Yeah, he kind of like contacts people from another dimension. He's trying to open this doorway.
That was Michael Preston, the British actor who was in, the Australian actor
Yeah,
who was
yeah.
in Mad Max.
And there's like these crystals, these power crystals that people are trying to get, and he needs a certain number of power crystals, I think, to open this doorway. And he brings people's souls into this other dimension, and there's this big kind of fight on these like skyrocket little things at the end.
Typical rom-com,
And in the preview too, it's like everything is. They try to show it. It's in 3D, and they're trying to throw things at you.
Right,
and lasers are coming.
crystals,
Yeah,
broken
crystals.
glass.
I'm looking for the crystals.
What was odd about that is that the old-time 3D camera,
Yeah.
we had to wear kind of a yellowish, reddish, sepia tone makeup.
Really?
Yeah, because it would only work for the 3D camera. You had to wear a certain kind
Colors
of
and
makeup.
stuff? Okay.
Yeah. So it would kick from that lens, right? You
And
know
it's
what I'm
cool.
talking
No,
about.
yeah, you
It's
do.
a thicker
And
makeup.
Jeff Byron Great guy.
What a nice man.
And his mom is Anna Lee.
Yeah.
And his father is Robert Stevenson, the director, Mary Poppins. And his sister
Jeez.
was my manager.
Oh, wow. It's
Anisha Stevenson,
a
the
family
actress.
affair.
So that's how, it all interconnected. And then Jeffrey ended up on General Hospital with his mother.
Yeah, Jeffrey's a really great, funny guy.
Great guy.
Now, was it a pretty quick production? Like, did they shoot the thing?
It was like a 4-week thing, I think.
Did you have fun on this? Did you think, I'm doing Metal Storm?
Yeah,
this is like
the
big.
guy that I got to play was, I had a Richard Boone haircut in that.
Yeah.
I had the, what's the Richard Boone movie that, The Warlord? Is he in that?
Yes.
I had the Warlord. I got the Warlord. I wanted to wear my hair straight back, and Charlie said, no. Wear it with bangs, which was my choice.
Very Dee Dee Ramone.
But it was, I had the Dick Boone cut. But no, I had a lot of fun on that, and that was Travolta's wife, first movie.
Kelly Preston.
Oh, yes.
But she was a nice girl, and that was her first movie. I think she went to SC, maybe? Or maybe U of
I think
H.
she did, yeah.
She went to SC, yeah. She just got out of school and got that job.
So once you did Metal Storm, like you were introduced to the Empire Pictures and Charles Band. So from that point on, you started doing a lot of Empire Pictures. And
Well, after that came Trancers.
Trancers.
And
1985, first one.
Yeah, because I think Metal Storm was 83.
83, yeah.
'Cause I don't think my son was born then.
Yeah, I think 84, for Trancers, the first one, I think.
I thought it was 84.
First one was shot in the summer of 84 during the Olympics. That's what I remember. But
Wow.
it was released in 85.
Aha! Take that, Sheridan.
Now, from what I...
Jack Deth. That is your
Jack
name.
Deth.
Jack.
Yeah.
Again, just a great macho hero name. Jack Deth.
That came from Danny and Paul. We got together and because Charlie wanted to have this cop from the future because it was called Future Cop in the beginning. But then Danny and Paul were both fans of the Maltese Falcon and Raymond Chandler and that genre. So we got together and I said, why don't we make the guy like that?
Like
Let's
a
make him
hard-boiled...
sort of a hard-boiled gumshoe guy, and he's from the future, but he's this quintessential noirish detective, or a cop.
Which is great.
And,
you guys went with that.
So that was the hook. And Charlie, I don't think, ever really got that. I don't know if he really understood what we were trying to do in the sense of the way it was written, because he was into the fireworks of the sci-fi stuff.
Sure.
The slow bullet.
Yeah.
And that. And I had worked with Helen Hunt on a TV series.
Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in
That's right.
Trancers and the sequel.
And we had done. I was in a series called The Two of Us, and she was a guest star. She was like 18 at the time or something. She's a really funny girl. Very, very funny girl. Mm-hmm. And
super cute.
Yeah, she's a really good-looking kid. And I told Charlie, I said, they brought a bunch of different actresses in, and I said, you should look at this girl, Helen Hunt. And she came in, and we did the reading, and it just all clicked.
Yeah, it really does. The movie just really clicks so well.
And
I would say that the hard-boiled approach, it works really well against all the whole futuristic hype.
Yes,
it does.
It's
because
really, really good.
It came right at the heels of, it was either right after or right before Blade Runner.
Right.
And Terminator, I think, was all kind of around the same time.
A nice blend, though, of those.
Yeah.
But I think, Mac Ahlberg, who's the DP on that, who Courtney knew very well, and he was just a really sharp DP who gave Empire and also Full Moon, right? A lot of those great looks. So the looks that Charlie's films have always had a great look about it.
Yep.
Because they were well lit and
colorful.
The camera work was pretty good. And Mac Ahlberg was Sven Knight. I mean, he was Ingmar Bergman's cameraman.
Wow.
And he left. He told Ingmar Bergman, he says, listen, I'm going to go shoot some commercials in Germany. Then Sven Nyquist took over, and that's the history of that.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
Mac was just such a great guy, and really, but he really had that eye. He'd say, okay, let's flag that here and put this over here.
They can really make the most of the small budgets, right?
Yeah, because we're going to stretch it out.
Because these were not big budget films. This Trancers, but I mean, Trancers
paid in red vine.
It had to be, okay. But I mean, these had to be popular because they went. Sean, how many of these they made?
You did. There were like
you were 6 or 7.
No, we did I was in 5.
You were in 5 of those.
5 of them. The Trancers is the only one that got the first one's the only one that got a theatrical release.
Oh, I see. I got
That's the only one, and then that's when the video world took.
You're right. It's
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Empire was right there during the whole boom of that.
So they
of
were
that video.
in on that. And you and I talked about how at that time there were those Avco Embassy, those small companies that were grinding out these movies. You know, Canon being much bigger stars and
And
stuff.
then the ultimate note of irony. No, not ultimate note. I reviewed Trancers for the Hollywood Reporter.
You did?
Wow. No way.
Yes, I did. No, I had
Here
a
it
buddy.
comes. Here it comes.
I had a buddy who was writing for them. He couldn't do it. He was sick or something. And I actually went to a screening of it for Donald Reed for the Count Dracula Society.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes, I
Wow.
remember.
We're presenting Trancers today with our Mr. Tim Thomerson.
You mean I got an award from that guy?
I know. I was
own
there. I was writing about that.
That weird.
Yeah.
It's a very special certificate of merit to Timothy Thomerson.
So I actually wrote about
Wow.
Trancers for the report. Little did I know what the future would hold.
What was the
Exactly.
review? What'd you do?
Oh, I
Did you give
loved
it like
it.
a
I
5
thought it was
stars?
great. I mean, I knew it was
3 stars out of 5. What did you do?
Total fun.
I gave it. I gave it
A thumbs up.
The geek.
You gave it
seal
a
of
thumbs
approval.
up.
of course.
Okay.
I remember I was that big book of movies that Leonard Maltin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
You paged through
checking
it.
through it.
Yeah.
And,
You came to
and Leonard
Trancers.
Maltin gave it a really nice little review.
He did.
Yeah, and I had ran onto him over here in the valley somewhere in a restaurant, and I said, you were very nice to me on a review. And he went, you're Tim Thomerson.
Well,
He was a very nice guy.
It works really well as a comedy. I mean, it's hysterical.
Well,
It's-
Helen, Hunt she's one of those actresses who really knows the beats of a scene, and she grew up as a kid actor, and if you play it straight, as you know, it's the funnier it is.
Right.
So, and that's what we tried to do, and we did it. We accomplished that, And I think 2 got a little, well, ladies and gentlemen, a little too wacky, a little too Jerry Lewis. But then I think 3, is the one that Courtney directed.
Courtney wrote
1 and
it.
3 are my favorite.
Wait, Courtney directed Trancers
wrote
3?
Trancers
3.
Oh my
Yeah.
God!
During the Los Angeles riots of '92.
Yes, indeed.
What, you were directing it during the riots?
Yeah, we were one of our guys got shot. Right?
You're kidding.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, one of our PAs did. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, it was.
And you kept filming.
Well, it didn't happen in the shot, I'm assuming,
a
right?
Charlie Band movie. You keep.
Gotta keep those
Shooting.
cameras
I don't
I don't care if there's a
going.
riot. You keep shooting.
And the great Andrew Robinson was the bad guy.
Oh,
in
man.
that one, right?
Absolutely,
He was
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Andy's wife was my agent at that time,
Oh, wow.
Irene Robinson. And
awesome.
I'd known Andy since college, and I had done this
nice
little
man.
cool little documentary about Don Siegel.
Cool.
And then we stayed in touch, and then Irene was representing me when I was writing Prison and all that stuff. And then this came up.
Wow.
And may I say,
Say it.
Say away.
get embarrassed.
Say it. Come on.
This opportunity absolutely would never have happened if it had not been for Tim. It's true. It's
Parents put a gun to my head.
It's true. As we had done this one movie, we did the Vietnam, Texas, and had a ball. And you were working. I think you only worked for like a week because you were off to do Air America.
Oh, wow.
But
Air America.
Was I? Oh, you're
Yeah,
right.
right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You mean in
And-
Vietnam, Texas?
Vietnam, Texas.
Yeah.
And we were shooting, but I was so excited Tim was going to be in this movie I had worked on. And I go down the set, and 30 seconds after shaking hands, suddenly we're all about 99 River Street and Dan Duryea and all this shit. So
Wow.
Well, he kind of introduced me to the dark side of film. 'Cause to answer your question early on that you asked about first getting into the sci-fi stuff, and then Sean,
Yeah.
dollying over to what you were saying about falling into this genre of sci-fi monster, whatever you want to call it. I was personally never a fan of sci-fi. The only sci-fi.
Well, that's our show.
Wait. Let me segue into saying that the best sci-fi film ever made was Them. No.
Yeah.
Nice.
Big bug.
I'd say The Thing. The Thing.
Oh.
The Thing was for me, because I'm an old guy. And
Yes.
I grew up in black and white television.
Oh, we love
Oh, so yes.
And
Well,
that was a great great.
So
sci-fi
it is.
movie.
that thing,
and-
so you're
Brilliant.
talking about the thing from another world.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not
Howard
Carpenter.
Hawks.
Yes.
Howard Hawks.
Yes,
We're
I
talking
know.
about Howard Hawks.
Not the John
Nyby.
Carpenter thing.
Yeah.
Which is John Carpenter.
Well, the
thing-
John Carpenter thing's brilliant.
It is brilliant.
yes.
Oh, that's a brilliant
But they're
movie.
both great in their own right.
Oh, you
Right,
bet.
totally.
Yeah. But I was never really a fan of sci-fi per se.
That's
you know.
okay. That's all right.
Monsters, Lon Chaney, stuff like that. And
Sure.
Vampires, I like that. And but well, I don't want to offend any of you sci-fi folk out there. I live in a science fiction world. So growing up, I just wasn't a fan of it.
All right. Okay.
But
But
for a segue, I
There's
gotta
a
get- No,
but-
you're bringing up like the kind of like the ultimate point here. And when you've got an actor like Tim, you've got these guys, he's mentioning them. He's mentioning the thing. You're mentioning like guys like Ken Tobey and James Arness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And James Whitmore.
Yeah.
And Richard Carlson and all the rest of these guys. They're just do these roles straight. They take what they're doing on the page seriously,
Right.
which is why the material works.
Right.
And that's why it works when,
getting
when
back
you
to
do
like,
it. You-
playing the stuff, he's a comedy. You play it straight. I think it works better. The comedy will come out of it. Or what's the movie with Cesar Romero and the guy that never talked in Steel Helmet, where they go to the top of the world? What's it?
Latitude Zero?
Huh?
Latitude Zero?
No.
Island at the top of the world?
With the
no,
mom-
the Lost Continent.
the
Oh,
Lost
the Lost
Continent.
Continent.
The
Right,
Robert
right.
Lippert movie.
Oh, yeah, the
Oh,
50s, yeah.
right. That's a good
Hugh
movie.
Beaumont.
Yeah. Hugh Beaumont.
But what's the guy's name? The little guy never talked.
Right. He was one of the Bowery Boys.
He was?
Yeah.
What? He wasn't Whitey, was he?
No.
No, Whitey?
No.
Whitey.
Remember Whitey?
Yeah, there's
We'll remember
Whitey.
her in a sec.
Hey, Chief.
Sid Melton. Who actually was only in some Bowery Boys movies. I misspoke. He was
Oh.
not a Bowery Boy.
I see. Okay.
Gotcha.
I
Close
worked
enough.
with one of the Bowery Boys.
Which one?
Gabe Dell.
Oh, yeah, Gabriel Dell. Yeah, that's right.
And I used to see Hunts Hall, and when I first came to Los Angeles, I used to see Hunts Hall in the unemployment line.
Oh, man, jeez. After making like 57 Bowery Boys movies.
They made so many.
Like, yeah.
It was really something to see.
Wow.
But anyway,
Trancers.
Trancers.
So you did 5 of these.
Five. I did
Okay,
five.
There was that. I always remember, like, talking about playing comedy straight. There's that line. It's in the first Trancers where you have just recently inhabited the body of your ancestor who's got your normal hair. I'm guessing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you grab some gel or something and you put in your hair. And it's like the line is like, "Dry hair's for losers."
Dry hairs for squids.
Dry-
For squids. There you go. I knew you would have the line.
Ironically, I never liked that line.
Really?
Never
I thought that made me laugh out
The
loud.
trademark line. Yeah.
I just, I don't know why. I just,
But you have to deliver it straight. That's the only way it
Yeah.
works.
Right.
Well, Trancers was also one of the first movies. I think Jekyll and Hyde Together Again was the first, but your association
gosh.
with actor Art LaFleur.
oh,
yeah,
was
he's awesome.
Was Arden?
According to IMDb, he was.
He's in
Jekyll and
Dr.
Hyde
Mr. Hyde.
Together Again.
He is?
Apparently.
Wow.
I may be
Oh, my
wrong.
God.
I may be wrong, but
Art and I worked all around the world together.
he's in
Yes.
so many of your films, and he's
Well,
hysterical.
Funny man. Funny guy.
And he's the Tooth Fairy in the Santa Claus for you kids out there.
If we're going to talk horror,
What's
in
Santa Claus?
the Tim Allen Santa Claus series, he plays the Tooth Fairy.
Isn't it the Santa Claus?
The Santa
the
Claus.
Santa
I
Claus.
just thought you should get it right.
Technically, he's in the Santa Claus 2 and 3.
Okay.
You won't find him in the Santa Claus 1.
Okay.
Oh, that's very
okay.
important.
Well,
To our
I
listeners.
don't want anyone wasting their time.
No, you're right.
We don't want letters.
That character McNulty, he was the perfect guy for that because he was a dead ringer for William Bendix, and that
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
actor, he has that way about him too. He's a Midwest Gary, Indiana guy, and he's a really funny guy, Art. And
He is.
literally, when we worked, roamed together on Zone Troopers in Thailand, on Air America. Art's a very funny man. Very funny
Zone
guy.
Troopers, I love too.
Zone Troopers is so
Zone
good.
Troopers is a great, hybrid of retro, war action movie.
Oh, Zone
sci-fi.
Troopers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a great. That's
Yeah.
a,
You must love that
That-
movie, right? I mean, that's
I-
such
a lot
a
of
great
action. There's
well,
a lot of
the families. We had all our families with us. The kids were little, and we were doing combat. I wanted to.
Right.
That's what
Right,
we were
right.
playing. We were playing war.
Right.
And we got to shoot it in Italy, and right outside of Rome. We were in Rome for 4 months, Wow. And it was where we shot was insane. We shot in this beautiful place called Monziano, I think it was. And that spaceship, that's a pretty good piece of equipment that was built there, I mean, you look at that from that long shot when you first see it sticking in the ground.
Yeah, very impressive.
Pretty impressive,
Yeah. It's a great pulp kind of action. Sci-fi
and it's
film.
got that it's got the opening. It opens like how those old time movies
like
open.
newsreel.
Like
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
and then Timmy Van Patten was the perfect guy. For
He was.
that
He was
character.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just the jargon in that movie is great.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that
swell,
was
Sarge. Like, your name is literally the
Yeah.
Sarge in the film.
A lot of heart.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
and I kept going, butt me, which was,
Yeah.
well, that comes from A Walk in the Sun.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Right.
Walk in the Sun, which I think Richard Connie was always going, butt me.
And that was Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo, right? They
Right.
wrote
Danny
and
directed that, and that was funny. We had a lot of fun on that.
That was a good
It was
one.
a fun movie. And we shot it at Cinecittà, and one day Coppola was walking through there.
Who?
Really?
So, yeah. We were shooting on the set, and I was looking at this guy, and I said, "That's Francis Coppola."
Yeah.
And he had a Homburg on.
Sure.
He was all decked out, in a
little
trench
heavy.
coat. And,
Oh.
Is that the guy that did Dementia 13?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
it
I know
is.
this. Yeah.
He did a few other films
Yeah.
you might know.
But
that did
I
well.
I said,
Godfather.
But he was very nice.
Too.
He was just walking through. I think he was
Yeah.
just checking out the state, the studio, the
Yeah.
stages. But to have worked there was fun. And then I worked at De Laurentiis Studios later.
Uh-huh.
In another Trancers that was never seen, the Pulse Pounders.
Oh, yeah. No, what
Which
was that? Was like an unfinished project? What was it
I
exactly?
think it's finished now, or I think
Wait,
it's completed
Corny,
now.
do you know?
Yeah, it is. In
everything.
fact, you can. I think you can get it on the streaming site or something.
But what is that film? Like,
It was like a 30-minute vignette of there's another completely different movie with Megan Ward, I think.
Well, yours is what, City of Angels or something is what it's called, and
I don't know.
And I think Charlie wanted to start, a series of movies that would be kind of multiple installments from all the series, and they did an Evil Clergyman. Right, the HBO with David Warner,
Right.
and Jeffrey. I think Stuart Gordon directed it. And the
It's
idea,
it's a Lovecraft thing, right?
exactly. And I think the idea was that they would release a whole series of these Pulse Pounders, and it would just be
Pulse Pounders. That was the initial title for all of them.
correct.
I see.
Oh, I see. Okay, like a series under the title Pulse Pounders. Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, along the lines of tying different franchises together, Dollman.
Dollman.
We start with Dollman. 13 inches with an attitude.
This is amazing.
This is such a great movie. You've got this detective from another planet chasing a bad guy. The bad guy manages to make it to our Earth, but our Earth, the size ratio is completely wrong.
That's right.
And so everybody is a giant to the bad guy and to the cop.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where I met Terry, my wife, on that. She was
Oh,
Wow.
makeup on that.
how about that?
Cool.
But
So you
That-
owe that all to Dollman.
Yeah. And what a cast.
Albert Pune.
Albert
And for-
Kuhn,
and-
Albert, we did a lot of movies together. Jeez, did 10 movies with Albert.
Wow.
And another great name, by the way,
Yep.
of your character.
Brick Bardo.
Brick Bardo.
That's right. So
I think
Dollman.
Albert wrote that. Albert and Charlie, I don't think, got on. Was that an Empire picture?
Full Moon.
Yeah,
Full
it's
Moon.
yeah.
So Dollman came out in 1991.
1991.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like a Full Moon movie.
No, it was
because-
much grittier, more like
Well,
darker, violent.
Once again, the DP on the show that Albert used.
Oh, it was George Merodian.
George Meridian. This guy had such an eye, and Albert always had really good cameramen. Mm-hmm. And Albert was he really knew what to do with the camera, because that's the quintessential low budget,
Yeah.
crazy movie,
Right.
pre CGI.
Right.
Absolutely.
No,
right.
no, I take that back. No, that's
You did.
Nemesis.
So you
I'm
did.
sorry.
There was
I'm
forced
getting ahead of
perspective.
myself.
You did a bunch of other
Miniature stuff.
You did.
I think also having it shot, because there's a majority of it that's shot on this like vacant lot quarry or something.
Well, that's where they shot Terminator, and we shot Dollman out there, and we also shot Nemesis out, way out going toward Ontario Airport. There was like a quarry of some sort of wasteland, and it really did have that look to it.
And
at
it's
the end
easier.
of the day, everybody had this grid on us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funky deal.
It must be easier to do like things like forced perspective and stuff
Yeah.
when the only thing that you're working with are rocks of various different sizes.
Well, that's what Albert would do. He would
Yeah.
take the camera and put it way down here, or and I'm like going like that.
With your gun. Because
Yeah.
Dollman had a very special gun.
Yes, a souped-up gun.
I forget the name of it.
I'll tell you what it was. It was I think it was a Desert Eagle, which is an Israeli-made, would be comparable to what Dirty Harry had.
Right.
Oh, wow. Right.
It was a massive.
It's a real gun.
And it kind of explodes people.
Those effects are so great.
Because
Well, that's
here you have
what's amazing.
Dollman.
Those effects were great.
Yeah, really great.
Dollman's 13 inches tall, and here he's got this gun, and he just.
Now, on his planet, when he shoots
Right.
somebody with this gun,
Right.
he blows them to pieces.
Yes.
In fact, his arch nemesis, who is this guy, Sprug, who is
Sprug, the floating head
the
guy?
floating head guy.
right. I know,
And
yeah.
they had...
He's literally a floating
Yeah,
head.
they'd had some scuffles before, and this was the only part of him that was left from those scuffles was a fucking head that floated around.
But he had it. But it wasn't just a head, Matt. He had like a little.
It was like a saucer.
Yeah, it was like a
Jetpack
flying
thing.
saucer pack
Yeah.
that he
Yeah.
could move around.
Yeah.
which it was very.
But he has all these henchmen, and Brick shoots them, and they blow to pieces.
Once
Pinata.
again, Albert, he could knew where to put the camera, and George knew his stuff with it. Like Mac Alberg, he could really, that's those guys that make that stuff look great. This is important to those kinds of movies, I think.
Absolutely.
It has a look.
But you were kind of a bit of a badass in this too.
Well, I said, how am I
Dollman.
going to play this guy?
Yeah.
Because I'm already Jack Death out.
Yeah.
So I got the buzz cut like this
Yeah.
deal I'm wearing now.
Yeah, right.
And I said, I figured out, I'm just going to be Clint.
Yeah.
I'll just do Clint in this.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work if I Jack Death out.
Right.
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 And somewhere I read that movie got a really good review from the Brits. Something about this is a tribute to a real B picture.
Right.
This is the way it should be done, because it did have a real feeling and a look about it.
And the bad guy in that was Jackie Earle Haley.
Yeah.
What was it like working with him?
Great. He was
So good in that movie.
You have a really convincing Bronx accent, which I'd never seen come from him before.
from
Jackie Earle Haley, yeah.
He's a California guy, I think, isn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
He's a
did
good
love.
actor.
I really did love your performance in that film because, as you said, it's not Jack Death. It's Clint, but it's also you're also not really a nice guy at all.
No. When you're 13 inches and all you got is a gun, you got to be a prick. You're a
Exactly. And like even in the very beginning scenes where you're on your home planet and you're saving this like group of fat people that are in a bunker and you're making fat jokes. I'm like, wow,
God, I don't even remember that. I'd
oh,
have to
it's
see that
so
again.
it's so good.
A lot of these movies I've never even seen. That's true. I just didn't.
Well, Tim, you work so much. If you IMDb, it's like film after film. I mean, it seems like you are constantly working.
You're a
I don't know
busy
how
guy.
you had
Well, I had
time.
an alimony. I never turned a job down.
So you kept saying yes,
I
I'm
know,
available.
I lived
yes.
on airplanes and
One advantage to seeing them now is that you don't have to see them on like grainy VHS. Now a lot of these are remastered on Blu-ray and they look
Well, I
beautiful.
saw Trancers on Blu-ray, and it would look pretty darn good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I'd
great.
like to see. I think Zone Troopers is coming out. or
It's
maybe-
out.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah, it
Saw
looks really good.
And,
It's great.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Fade to Black. I never. This movie is like I can't find this movie. I don't think it's on DVD.
We had a hard time finding it.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to find
Idiots,
now,
which
yeah.
usually has everything.
No,
Yeah.
we can hook you up, Tim.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I
we'll
know,
get
but
you
I
that.
just-
We know a guy who knows a guy.
But in reality, you would think that this, in this genre, that this movie would be. And I
Screen
went
Factory's
online-
got to have it on the queue, right?
Yeah, probably.
Well,
it's
it got,
only
it got
VHS.
all weird,
Distribution.
tied up with its distribution and its financing because the main financer was the guy from the Cotton Club who got.
Oh,
Jeez.
Did not know this.
Wow, interesting.
Inside information, baby.
So anyway, I'm sure it probably just ended up in like receivership or something.
Right,
you know.
That's really good.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Well, maybe we can start a campaign.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know.
there we go.
And talk about
and by
all
the
of
way,
us who love film. I mean, that thing is a love letter.
And it's good too because it came out and during the wave when it was the slasher phase and there was nothing but slasher movies, and this was very different.
A unique take.
It was still kind of a gory
pretty
horror.
well
but-
acted.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it's
Chris
great.
Dennis
It's a great concept.
And
little Linda Carriage.
Yeah,
you know what's interesting? The lady that played my girlfriend in the movie, the cop, was who's the guy? Pine on Chips.
Oh, Robert Pine.
Robert Pine's wife was pregnant at the time, and we're doing this love scene, and she was pregnant with the kid who's the movie star now, Chris Pine.
Chris
He's a really-
Pine. Oh,
really good
wow.
actor.
Chris Pine.
Yeah, and she said,
Was
I'm
Gwen,
pregnant.
Gwen Guilford?
Yes,
Gwen-
Gwen Guilford, married to Robert, who's a very nice guy, and she was great.
And so that Gwen Guilford is
So
Chris
she-
Pine's mom.
Yes, and
Wow, okay.
she was pregnant at the time we
Wow,
were shooting.
jeez.
So
Oh my God!
how about
What
that
a
for some
small
lineage?
world.
Speaking of
Fade to
Dollman,
black.
you're talking about
Yes.
you know, our good friend here being all Eastwooded out. I think we should mention your turn in one of Clint's very best movies,
Oh yeah,
Honkytonk Man.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I remember seeing that.
yeah.
What character did you play in Honky Tonk Man?
I was the
Were you the honky tonk man?
No. That was
I
Clint.
was the tonk in the honky tonk. No, I was a Oklahoma State trooper who pulled him over. Ticket.
With the
Yeah, with the gal that he and his son Kyle.
Yeah,
and
Kyle.
the great old actor
John
John
McIntyre.
McIntyre. And that was interesting because I got that role. They just took a Polaroid. The next thing I knew, I was flying to Reno or to Carson City, and they shot Clint's stuff and Kyle, and then they turned around on me and he says, "Okay, Tim, we're gonna do your close up now. You ready?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he was really, really nice to me. And then fast forward, my kid grew up in Idaho, in Sun Valley, Idaho. So I'm up there skiing, and I was skiing with this guy all day, and he didn't know I was some Hollywood phony, So.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this guy says, "Hey, how you doing?" And I look up, and I didn't know who it was. And I said, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And it was Eastwood and his kid, Kyle. And the kid that I was with, that I was skiing with, was some guy he owned a ski shop in Vegas or something. And he was saying, "Do you know Clint Eastwood, man?" I said, "Well, yeah, And we go way back, so full of shit.
Lunchtime.
But he's such a good guy. And then I did another thing he did that Sandra had directed that he produced, Rat Boy.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Amazing rat
Infamous.
but what
Infamous
you
Rat
talk
Boy.
about a super talented guy, He is
he's
the
like a
man.
class act. Yeah.
You know.
Well, speaking of Dollman, I want to talk about how today we have all the huge Marvel Comics movies franchise.
Yes.
It's this shared universe of all these different superhero films, and they're all kind of connected in this shared universe. And they all appear in each other's movies and so forth.
Yeah.
But back in the 80s and the 90s, Charles Band was kind of doing that already. He was doing that before Marvel Comics was doing it with like Dollman, for example, because he had Dollman. Then there's another Charles Band production called Bad Channels.
That's right. Yes.
Which is a
Bad
freaky,
Channel.
ridiculous movie with like kind of alien disc jockeys shrinking down women to like doll size and
Making them utterly useless.
And what's her name from MTV?
Martha Quinn.
Quinn.
Right.
Right.
Martha Quinn's
Martha Quinn. Yes, absolutely.
That movie.
Oh, the gal that was the first MTV chick?
One of
And
four.
actually, I believe
Adorable.
at the end of Bad Channels, after the end credits, kind of like the Marvel Comics movies, there's a little appearance of Brick Bardo with the shrunk down chick in the movie. So it's a little connection there. And then the next movie featuring Dollman was Dollman versus Demonic Toys. Because there was already a movie called Demonic Toys, and this movie was kind of a sequel to both Dollman, Demonic Toys, and Bad Channels.
Yes.
Oh my God!
So if your head's exploding
Yes.
now, that's
And the
kinda-
miniaturized hot chick was Melissa Bear.
And the,
Nurse Ginger.
and the demonic toys were
I can shed some light on that. Yes.
She
Ginger.
oh my God! Now, hopefully, she wasn't
was-
pregnant during the
No, she was
sex
nice.
scene.
She was a very sweet girl.
Very sweet girl with a very famous boyfriend that Charlie had hoped would do a cameo in the movie. You remember this?
What was Mick Jagger?
Mick Jagger.
Are you
exactly?
serious?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah,
No
that's right.
way.
She was with Mick Jagger, and Charlie kept saying, "Gee, do you think you can get Mick to come down here and wrestle with Baby Oopsie or whatever the hell he was?" after?
Yeah.
Fighting,
doll,
what
right.
fool.
Yep.
Oopsie led Daisy. Or something.
Wow.
Oh,
That
why can't
movie-
we live in that world?
You're saying about these
So,
three different
so this was pretty
movies that are
trippy, right? Because it was
spliced together.
right. Well, it was Dollman.
Well, Charlie had this where we shot Trancers 3 when the riots were going on. Charlie had all these props. He had the big giant props already in place.
Right.
From the first movie.
Right.
So I guess in his, period of
Penny pinching and trying to save some money.
weirdness that he just, because we shot that and I think we shot this in 4 days.
Wow.
I came in and shot it.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
It was
4 days?
Because there's a lot of flashbacks.
That-
There is.
I know, yeah.
There's
You
flashbacks
watch
to-
the
right.
movie, I'm not really, the girl and I aren't really in it that much.
Right. But
Tracy Scoggins is the
Tracy
cop
Scoggins.
from the first Demonic Toys, and
From
she
Babylon
kinda-
5.
right? And she teams up with Brick Bardo and Ginger, and they
Right.
fight the evil satanic toys.
and there's a great
Like
scene-
the bad clown, right?
No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There's a great scene when you
There's a
attack
baby.
Yeah.
the clown creature thing that it was so cool when you jumped on the giant clown face, which is kind of like a
He
slinky
used
type
up his
thing.
props, and he
But-
had all this footage from the other stuff. Go ahead.
All right, go, man.
Yes.
Quark's got
All right.
the
All
inside
right. Yeah.
line.
I was the producer of that movie, by the way.
No way.
Yes, I was uncredited.
Wow. Producer
I hired my
uncredited.
friend Craig Hammond to write it.
Craig Hammond, yes. Nice man.
Because we were both represented by Catherine James. And Craig was very sweet. I don't think it was really something he leapt at, but he loved Full Moon. He loved those movies, and I think he did a great job. But we came up with some scenes. The one major scene that Charlie said, yes, we'll go ahead, was the stop motion thing I did with you and the spider.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And so that was
How did you
really...
get away with that?
I truly, I don't know. Mark Manos, who was a director, was the editor of the movie. And the whole idea was, can we combine all of these elements together? And I asked Craig Hammond to get together with me and Charlie, and he wrote the screenplay. And we came up with some scenes. Tim with the animated spider, which is animated, I believe, by David Allen.
and which is a nice kind of homage to the Incredible Shrinking Man.
Incredible Shrinking Man,
Right.
exactly. That's what we wanted to do. Then Ken Hall and Mike Deek actually fabricated the giant baby oopsie and all of that stuff.
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
Yes, for the movie. And it was kind of this, bizarre hodgepodge. But, this is the thing, guys. Remember, Charlie was always launching out of his mind from comic books. I mean, that was his whole reference point, was Marvel. I mean, where monsters dwell and everything. I mean, he goes back to the early Jack Kirby, Joe Simon days as kind of his inspiration.
In fact, I don't know, chime in. His comic book collection was pretty significant, right?
Huge.
Really?
Huge,
Wow.
yes.
I mean, a wine collection and a comic book collection that worth, I think, buku.
Yeah, millions.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, I think Nicolas Cage bought his comic book collection.
He did.
What?
No.
Yes, he
Really?
did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right,
big
right.
big stuff. Yeah. But at the same time, but you're right, because of course Charlie was kind of cross-pollinating the different Full Moon characters.
Yeah.
And the only other company you could really think of who was doing it was Troma.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Toxie.
Yeah.
and-
But that
right.
all existed. There was no Full Moon Land, really.
Right.
I mean,
Right,
there
right.
was Tromaville. So
Yeah.
we were
Right,
Think
right,
about
right.
this when Courtney and I talked about this, and he brought it up earlier, or one of us did. But back then, there were all these. This stuff doesn't exist nowadays. There's just these big, giant companies or independent stuff that gets made. Small little movies or festival stuff.
Yeah.
And back then, there was just a lot of times you're shooting from the hip, and Charlie had these Baroque ideas about doing things, and we were just kind of players in his puppet master world.
Right, right.
And at the time you're doing it, you don't really. It's like what Courtney said. You're doing a tribute to a movie that you saw when you were a kid about a spider, and we're going to put it in this movie. It has nothing to do with that movie, but we're going to.
Who cares?
It's just cross-pollinating it, and that's true. And I think that's always been true. And you said earlier about me saying not being a fan of sci-fi. but I get how it works. I mean, I see that. I see the rubber rock being bounced against Shatner's head. Charlie Napier will, sashaying through the sea. No, but I mean, I just you don't see that stuff anymore.
But this is like pulp sci-fi. This was, this isn't, obviously the true super sophisticated Philip K. Dick world. Sure. This is,
but you know what? Though, like time has been kind of really good to these films. I think it's weird, but
I agree.
It's kind of like, I don't know if it's like a renaissance, but like all these, the Charles Band, the Empire, Full Moon stuff, there's a real affection for this stuff, and there's real charm about these movies. And I think generations today can kind of like rediscover a lot of this stuff.
They're shameless.
Well,
they embrace completely what they're doing.
Well, that was the thing, too. When all these movies were being made, and we talked specifically about The Full Moon, because that was the VHS explosion. Guys,
yes,
I mean, it was, the sky was raining gold on all of this. I mean, it was just incredible. And all these companies popping up all over the place. And Charlie was so smart because he would take our good friend here, and
exploit me. Yes. I had to pay alimony.
He would do these fantastic road shows and all this interaction.
Yeah. He was doing this before
road shows.
What do you mean? Like what? Like
it was kind of a traveling Comic-Con thing back, and this was way before anybody was doing this kind of thing. We were to Cleveland, Texas. He would rent out a theater. He would show previews. I would come on, do some kind of shtick. And then we'd kibitz between each other on stage. And literally, we flew. I remember we went to San Antonio. We were in the land of the lakes and the Ozarks. I don't know what the hell we were doing. But it was some place, some venue we were at. And then we were in Cleveland. And I think we went to New Jersey. And this was before the conventions were really happening.
Sure. So this is like early 80s maybe? I mean,
no, not early 80s. It was like mid-90s.
Oh, okay.
But back at with the Full Moon time, one of the things though was making sure that the owners of the mom and pop video stores, which were the relationships that Charlie really cultivated, got to meet the stars of the movies.
That's
Michael
so
Caine
smart.
was not going to walk into some corner video store in Kansas City. But suddenly there's literally the head of the company walking through the door, greeting everybody by name, saying hello, giving them
really
posters,
smart.
giving them swag. Wow. Don't you want to meet
like
the stars?
That's kind of like the throwback to the old horror shows of the 40s, and like where they would have like live horror shows, and like to kind of get.
But
people.
you see, he knew the value of all of that and getting those retailers excited about the product. Because remember, too, guys, this was at the time when how much did one of these video cassettes cost with these guys?
Right.
$49.95
or more, right?
Or more, and it was to rent, not for sale,
right.
And he shipped zillions of units because of this. Because I remember this guy, and it's great. He introduced me to Tim Thomerson. It was brilliant.
And he still takes that to the conventions, these small conventions he'll do.
Yeah, he still
takes it on the road. He'll take a room and have a whole Full Moon deal.
He really reaches out to his fans too. Like
big time.
He's a social media,
absolutely.
Big time
talk
guy.
to you and joke with you, and that's beautiful.
Look, the video zones were the very first time anybody ever did that. I mean, we would see those great Robin's Nest documentaries about the making of Magnum Force or something on the ABC Monday Night Movie for 8 minutes. But to have the guy who ran the company then sit there and talk directly to the fans, you get to see, we're always being interviewed. And
talk about what these were. They were like little behind-the-scenes documentaries of each of these movies, right?
And he introduced everyone, talked directly to the fans about the upcoming product, everything else, and we love you guys. And, he's doing all the song and dance. And then you find out about the special effects and all
right. And you have an interview
stuff
with Tim or with Helen Hunt talking about Trancers.
We were in Romania with David Nutter, who got the 4th and 5th installment of Trancers, which we shot back-to-back in Ströbe.
Which I like those too. That's like the kind of like the medieval setting. Those are fun.
Jack Deth is all of a sudden with Robin Hood.
Why not?
Again, I was just saying, I got a job and I'm going to Romania. That was so
really fun. Though.
I went to Thailand, to Rome, to Romania. It was unbelievable.
That's awesome, though. But yeah, it's
and Charlie we were in up in the Carpathian Mountains. Did you ever go up to where the ski resort was?
Never did.
It was beautiful. It was unbelievable. There was this old city we shot at. It was this old time church, and we were shooting a scene in there. And Charlie had the video zone going.
Right.
And I remember I was throwing the lariat. I could throw the lariat pretty well. And all these little Romanian kids, they were running around. And I think it's on the video zone.
That's awesome. I
remember saying to Charlie, or saying in the video zone, I'm over here in with a bunch of commies and Helen Hunt's, making that you. What happened?
I think that's where they show all the subspecies films too, right?
That's right.
So yeah, right. But yeah, you're right. It was kind of this whole universe of films.
Well, and we were talking about famous monsters earlier. Look, we grew up, and it's like, oh my God, look, there's a picture of Jack Pierce making up Bela Lugosi. I mean, that was behind the scenes for us.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, nothing on film, nothing that we could actually see.
And to this day, one of the things that makes me buy videos, buy Blu-rays, is the fact that there are all these extras.
Yeah.
The extras. That's the stuff that I want to see. It makes me so happy to see all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to know what happens behind the scenes and how they do special effects. And you would think that would be something that would be interesting to a modern audience. I don't know if that necessarily is the case these days. Well,
I think people that, if you get a Blu-ray or buy something, I don't know how many people watch extras, and I always watch them, I watched the movie like 4 or 5 times. Like Spectre, I just got the new Bond movie, and I've watched it like 4 times already, just stare at it and see how it.
Do you do like the commentary and all that kind of thing? Or?
Well, I haven't listened to it yet,
Commentary is either great or it's like
there's
the most
really
boring human being in the world.
Right.
There's some of the noir ones that just put me. I just go,
right.
Step it up, buddy.
Yeah.
Whoever those guys are.
Oh yeah.
So now you guys have been friends for how many years now?
30, 25?
30, about 25 years.
25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you must have just a treasure trove of stories of either your adventures or your misadventures.
I don't know. I'm pretty dull. I don't
know, man. Living in the valley out there.
I mean, look, Encino has got to be pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, here's our relationship. Hey, Tim, guess what? I just got a great lobby card of Kirby Grant and Gail Sondergaard.
I will call him up and say, I got one. I got you, man. I got you.
Yeah, he just got me on a Randy Scott movie the other day. John Sturgis directed that I had not seen.
Wow. So, like, trivia things or actual collectibles? Or
No, mostly trivia stuff. I will say.
Well, our lives, so I don't know. I can't say trivia. Yeah, that's kind of insulting.
I didn't say trivial.
Or I'll be thinking
okay,
about
good.
something, I go, I gotta fucking Courtney will know this. I gotta call him because he'll know who this guy is, and it'll be like the Grip who was on the movie that wasn't made by John Ford.
But I remember when we had. I'm going to call you C because I think we've got to that place in our relationship.
You can.
You call CJ with it?
I don't.
CJ.
Yeah, CJ. All right.
I don't think I'm there yet.
But I remember when you were on our show, it was amazing the sheer amount of behind the scenes crazy stories you had, like the one with Vincent Price.
I always love that story.
Like dressing you down, but in a glorious
Vincent
way.
Price dressed you down?
Yes, he did. He did. He got a little testy with me.
This is on Whisper to a Scream.
Yes, it was.
And you can tell the story again.
Yes.
Was he long in the tooth then, or what?
He was. And this was just at the point when he was a little unsure about whether or not he really wanted to do the movie. We had a few stalls.
Did you
and
direct this?
second grade. No, Jeff Bird did.
Oh, okay.
And we finally got him to come down to the set, and we had rewritten his part without really including him in the process of the rewrite. And he had been on a cruise, and he was pretty hot about that. And we were just young knuckleheads.
An art food cruise, I'm assuming.
Yes, indeed. And so I took, even though it was all of us, I took the heat, and I went up to Mr. Price, and I told him, because I wasn't going to have to direct him, I was trying to, let's at least let him, calm down, and if he wants to take it out on me, he could. And so I told him I had written the rewrite on my own, and he had this script, and he hit me in the chest with it. He said, "Oh, well, then you're married to shit."
And isn't that insult almost better than a compliment?
Oh, yeah. And he ended up being absolutely lovely. He was very nice to my mother.
So great.
It was fine.
That's so great.
It was fine.
I like it. I'm never going to wash this part of my chest again.
Yes. But when, we talk about Charles Bronson.
Please.
I was an extra in Murphy's Law.
Oh, really?
What?
An 80s Bronson film?
Yes,
Yeah.
directed by
Danny
J. Lee.
Wilson is also an extra in that.
Yes, there you go. Exactly. And directed by J. Lee Thompson. And I had a friend who was doing extra casting at Canon. And so I said, oh, my gosh. Well, we're shooting down in Little Tokyo. And it was this nightclub. And Bronson's wife is a stripper in the nightclub and all this stuff. Anyway, I didn't get put into the scene. So I'm standing around. I hadn't gotten chosen. And Charles Bronson had been brought to the set 3 hours before he was needed.
Oh.
And he was
he
pissed. He was pissed. And I had never seen him in person before. I was kind of surprised. He was, he wasn't that light. He was kind of a small man. And I could see the AD was talking to him, and he said, well, Charlie, this, that, and the other. And Bronson was fully dressed and everything else. Says, now you're just fucking me around. And so I said, oh, man, this is. So I did. So I had to go up to Charles Bronson, and it was just us. I mean, they were in there filming away, and he was mad. And so I'm there getting coffee or something, and there he is. He's just standing there. And I went up to him, and I told him how much I loved Rider on the Rain. And he looked at me, and he didn't say anything. They're like, oh, boy. So I go and I drink my coffee and I do my stuff and I go back to what we were allowed to eat as extras. And I'm trying to grab some old red vines or whatever it is. And I turn around and there's Charles Bronson standing there. Rider on the Rain.
So he took a long beat?
Long beat. It's like 30, 40 minutes later. We shot that one in Nice. So it was cool.
Wow. Awesome. Talk about an actor who knows how to work silences.
Yes.
This friend of mine, Ted Grossman, who, if you Google him, he's been in quite a few movies and a stunt coordinator. And he started on Combat. And Teddy was an old surfer. In fact, he was one of the surfers in Gidget, the original Gidget.
Oh, wow.
And he said that Bronson, when it came to stunt fighting, or if an extra or if a stand-in Bronson said, no, my hand was over here. He'd take the guy's hand and move it. And I guess he was really handy about it.
Precise.
Yeah.
Into continuity here.
And Teddy said he was just, he was kind of difficult, but not inside he's a good guy,
Right.
Well,
If you could get past that.
Yeah, well, you look at the A,
Clu Gulager always said that because he had to do a number of fights with Charlie over the years on the Virginian and all the Westerns, said he absolutely, in his mind, was the best actor to do a stunt. He says he was so precise,
Really?
never made a mistake, never pulled, not ever once. This was just like a choreographed dance, and he was just on it every single time.
Wow. Interesting.
You're talking about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde together again. The
Yeah.
producers
Please.
were Larry Gordon and his brother Chuck, and they produced Hard Times. Oh. And I asked them, I said, what was that like working with Bronson? They said, well, we went over to his house and we told him about this story. And Larry, they both had beards, and Bronson had a beard. He said, well, you should shave your beard. Well, you've got a beard. Why do I have to shave a beard? My beard. And Bronson, and they said, well, Charles, do you think you'll be able to handle this stuff? It's a lot of fights and stuff. They were sitting at his bar in his house in Malibu, and Bronson, from the ground, leapt up onto the bar and said, I can do anything. I can do any fight. So he was 57 when he did Hard Times,
Wow.
So
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
he was like he's pushing 60.
Yeah, when he
The
did
guy
the later.
was just buffed out.
Yeah. Even like the
I
later,
sprained something to get coffee.
well, he was all about Bronson,
Yeah, but like the later Death Wish movies, he was like in his 80s, right? By the time I think when he's making
Well,
Death
he
Wish
died
5.
when he was 85. Or
Yeah,
80,
yeah.
So
He
you
was
had pretty
making-
dementia'd up then.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's to just yell punk
Yeah.
and shoot.
Yeah.
Well, because since Tim was in Serpico, You know, this is the weird interconnection. There Serpico was cross-collateralized with Death Wish. And what happened was the original director of Serpico was not Sidney Lumet.
It wasn't?
It was a young man who had directed Rocky.
John Avildsen.
No.
And he and Al Pacino could not get along at all. And at the same time, Death Wish was being prepared by Sidney Lumet to star Jack Lemmon.
Oh, my God.
Jack Lemmon?
Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon was going to be in Death Wish?
Yes. Which is very much in keeping with the Brian Garfield novel.
Oh, my gosh.
And so it was going to be more like Straw Dogs or something. You know, that was, yeah.
That would have been pretty cool.
Wow.
So,
That's cool, too. It's just
Wow.
So suddenly, though, Pacino says, no, I can't get with Avildsen at all. So he is taken off the movie. So they switched Lumet over to Serpico. And when that happened, Jack Lemmon...
Was Lumet going to do...
He was going to do Death Wish. And so when that happened, Death Wish had no director, and Jack Lemmon said, well, I was going to do this with Sidney. I mean, this is around the Save the Tiger and all that.
Yeah.
So he said, forget it. I'm out for a very brief period. It was Henry Fonda and Don Siegel. Wow. That didn't go. And Garfield suddenly gets this call to come to Paramount. And Dino De Laurentiis says... we're going to do it with the Charlie and the Michael Winner. And he's like, oh, God, it's hard to say because of the, he had seen The Stone Killer and some things that they had been doing. He didn't think they were, what he wanted his movie to be. And Garfield told me this. He said, Dino De Laurentiis looked at him. He said, you hate me now. I just made you a multimillionaire. Wow. And he was right.
Wow. He was right, yeah. And I love that movie to this day.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
So there you go. So you are part of the Death Wish legacy. Because of
Mr. Thomerson.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Empire that you created.
Yes. Boy, there's a segue.
You guys really are older nerds, aren't you? Unbelievable. How often you do this? Once a week? I mean, once a week you're going,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's worse.
I mean, when you in your cups, are you guys just yelling at these kids listening?
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
We do.
Yeah.
No, is this being recorded?
Yes.
When we do the real show, you're gonna love it.
This is like Bob Ridgely's Duke Wayne.
And well, speaking of nerding out, though, I think there's another '80s film you were in, which we have to talk about.
Because Sean has to discuss this.
Kick-ass vampire movie, 1987. Near Dark. A very different role for you, Tim, too. Not a typical, at the time, a typical Tim Thomerson kind of role. Tell us about that.
Well, I went and read, I read the movie, and Eric Red wrote the play, or the screenplay.
Right.
And,
who had done The Hitcher.
Right. And when I read that, I went, boy, this is really good. And it was already pre-cast with the guys from Aliens,
right.
Jeanette.
Henrickson,
Paxton,
right.
Paxton, all that crew. So I went and read for Miss Bigelow, and I got the role, So, but it was not the first script, but it was a script. When I read it, everything that was in that script was in that movie, and I mean, they were off on their own world. Those guys, they had already worked together. And Lance there's a couple of stories about that. Lance, who's at that time was a very actor studio, what do you call it? I don't know what the term is.
Method actor?
Method, I guess you would say. It's been bastardized so much. But he and Paxton stayed as these guys.
Really? Really? Wow.
So I'm just in the role I play, the guy's father, Adrian's father.
Right, Adrian Pastar.
He's a
veterinarian.
A vet, and so I figure we're in Texas, Oklahoma, so I just get a little bit of talk like that, just a little bit, And I remember having a discussion with Catherine, wanted me to wear a pair of bib overalls, like hee-haw. Right. And I said, this is not, I'm not pulling cows out of it.
Right.
And she, I said, this is just wrong. I said, I don't think the guy should wear that. Anyway, she didn't really direct me very much, I would say who's really responsible for that movie is Adam Greenberg, the DP. who was did
Really
the Terminator.
cool look. Yeah.
And I think he's still with us. I don't know. But I had worked with him on this movie Iron Eagle over in Israel, and he's an Israeli guy, and he's a brilliant DP because that look was incredible.
Yeah, lots of like silhouetted shots.
It
and
was just
sunset
really,
shots.
That's
Beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
all Adam.
Well, that movie what was really different about that movie at the time too is it had this kind of southwestern vibe
yeah,
to it.
it was
These
all-
good old boys, but it was
Civil
they were
War guys.
kick-ass
They've been
vampires.
vampires
yeah.
for years.
Yeah, yeah.
And two stories. Lance, who I love and have worked with before, or worked with after that, and is just a great guy. And he's always searching. He's like one of those true actors. He's always, well, try it like this. What if I, and I say, hey, let's just say the fucking words and get out of it. So we're in Casa Grande, Arizona, back then in the mid '80s. So back then it was nothing there. It was a cow town, and we were staying in Ramada Inn. And I've told you this story. And Steve Altman, Bob Altman's kid, was the set decorator on that. And that's a good-looking movie. So I'm eating a salad or something in the afternoon, and Lance comes in, and Lance is in character. We've got these hair extensions and these fingernails he had taped on his face. And he didn't bathe, And the guy's a little ripe. And so we're staying at a real truck stop, a real trucker stay. And so he pulls out a fucking hog leg, a 6-shooter. Starts twirling it. Man, these truckers in the back of the room. Checking this out, And I go, hey, man, put that fucking thing away. What are you, come on, this is for real here. These guys are, it's a real truck stop. He says, I like to stare in character, He's twirling, then he got pirouetted out of the all acted out, I just, and these guys are looking at me, I'm going, And then, later on, a couple days later, I was going to go take a run or something, and Lance got a pretty good sense of humor. So I'm getting in my rent-a-car, and I hear that distinct sound of a shotgun, and I'm shaky anyway. So I went, God damn it! And he goes, I got you again, didn't I? So I guess apparently Lance and Paxton were driving back from work one day, and Lance had a Mustang ragtop, and the cop pulled them over, and they're in uniform. They're in costume. Yeah. So this cop is looking, and Paxton's got all this blood and all this crap. So Lance told me that he gets out of the car, and the cop's looking at these guys, and they're just crazy looking, right? And Lance says to the cop, he says, can I see your pistol? The cop says, you get the fuck out of here. Go. And another story, Lance drove from California to Arizona, and I guess he picked up a hitchhiker.
No.
And he was into this character. Uh-huh. And he told me, he said he just scared the shit out of this guy. You can imagine some guy, some kid hitchhiking.
To be that kid, huh?
Really.
This movie, I think, is one of the best vampire movies ever made.
I absolutely 100% agree.
It's
and
unapologetic.
Once again, no CGI.
Yeah, it's
all straight ahead film, and that sequence inside that bar is
the Hick
amazing.
Bar.
The most chilling sequence in a horror movie. Maybe one of my favorite scenes in a horror movie, especially of the modern age so far.
Right.
Really.
Well, it's also just the way. You just don't mess with these characters. It's just they're just going across town from stealing carts, killing these people, and burning their bodies or whatever, and they're just moving across the plains, just killing people.
And this film always came off to me as the good version of The Lost Boys.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
This is the serious, well-directed, well-shot version of The Lost Boys. Lost Boys was always too silly and kind of didn't make any sense. And this movie.
This was a serious movie.
I thought it made sense. I like Lost Boys.
No, sorry.
I did like it. No. You're saying no. You're saying
You're the
no.
guy
I
that likes the
like
shitty Star Trek thing.
He means Voyager.
Just a second here. I'd like to point out that there's a lot of great Star Trek out there. So I'm not exactly
Just not the stuff you like.
No, you must be talking about the animated series, perhaps. I don't know.
It's so wonderful in Near Dark. Who's that? The actor, I had him in class in 1999. Jason Patrick's brother.
Yes.
From River's Edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He's now gotten a very significant writing and producing. He just did something really huge.
Joshua Miller.
Joshua Miller.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. That's
Genius, that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
boy on the set. He was man. He was that kid.
Old soul.
Old
all
soul.
the
Yeah.
way
Good
coming
call.
through. Yeah.
That's a good call. And what's interesting, Jeanette Goldstein, she's a Jewish girl from Beverly Hills. And in the Aliens, I thought, where did they get this Puerto Rican? Where did they get this girl at? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
you know, when
she's
I
great, yeah.
met her, you know, she was such a sweet girl. But Paxton, this guy he played in that and Big Love, the
Yes.
best thing he ever did.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
think.
Your character in Near Dark, though, is it's a father who's
Yeah,
like looking out
he's-
for his son, and you know, it's just a really, like I said, a really different kind of role, kind of a much more sensitive side of you. And you're really good.
Well, I was lucky to get it so I could, you know, play another guy, a different
Right, yeah.
guy that I don't know if I ever really. I tried to do. My whole goal in working in this business was to try to live up to the way I was trained as an actor, and hopefully each time make these people as real as you possibly can, because you know there's only seconds that you're on camera and minutes.
Sure, sure.
that.
Right.
And so I don't think I ever really turned a job down. I really don't. Because
Are there,
I was
like-
always
are there-
interested in trying to make something, you know, to play comedy, drama, or just to, what you're saying, a utility guy, you know. Just
Right. Well, are there roles or movies that like you're really proud of that maybe not as many people know about?
Yeah, there's something that I did this movie called Last Chance that Bryan Cranston wrote and directed for his wife, Robin Dearden, and Art LaFleur was in that. Jay Thomas, and this is before Brian hit, and I played this writer who was kind of a Hemingway-esque type guy who was a drunk, and he sobered up, and now he became a cross-country truck driver. He pulls into this little truck stop. His rig breaks down, and he gets involved in this family, Brian and his real wife, and she kind of falls for me, and I fall for her, and it's really well done, I think. And Brian is so smart. And I had worked with him before. We'd shot a pilot down in Mexico with Fred Dreyer in a series we shot called Land's End. Jeff Lewis and Fred Dreyer and I. And Brian, I had a big sequence I had to say, and I was a little nervous about it because I feel a lot of words, you know, I memorization, and I have to write it out. I'm, you know, Catholic school by rote, you know.
Right,
I
right, yeah.
have to write it out. I write
Yeah,
out all my
no,
dialogue
yeah.
so
Right.
I can remember it. Then I would learn my dialogue by going backwards. I would read the piece backwards. At any rate, I said, listen, I don't want to overdo this because this is, you know, I got a lot of words here. He says, don't act. Just talk. Just talk. I got to go work with my wife over here because she's trained differently than you. 'Cause she's trained at a Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, but it was like the best. I was proud of it because I wasn't acting and I was just being this guy. You know, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
and
it's
it
cool.
won like a couple. I think it won Palm Springs Film Festival Award. This is, I forget what year it is. It's in there, lying up there somewhere.
Cool.
We will find it.
And of
we
course-
will watch it.
And there's a Hill Street I did where I played a slumlord, which I liked a lot.
Oh, you did a lot of television actually in the 80s too.
Well, I always Courtney, I talked about this before. Like when I was growing up, I'd watch TV and I'd see Charles Bronson, and then I'd see James Colburn in a Gunsmoke, and then they'd be on
Twilight Zone.
Zone, or
Perry Mason,
you know, and
yeah.
all these different guys doing all. And I said, and then you see him in a movie.
Right.
And I go, well, that's so. When I first started, I said, well, you know, I'm going to try and do both of these. Even when there used to be a thing, well, you can't do TV if you're doing movies.
Right.
You know, now what's the best stuff is all
Right.
television now.
Yeah, really.
How that has changed.
It's really
Totally.
changed.
Yeah.
You know? But
Long
back
form.
then, if you were, he's a television actor, he's just not going to work for this film.
Right.
That's how there was a stigma about it.
Totally.
But I just took every job, figuring that the more time I got with camera and also I was lucky enough to be involved in a period of time was way after the studio system had dropped. But there was a lot of old camera guys, technicians. So I would talk to those guys and learn how to talk to the DP and say, hey, can I look through the lens? What, you know,
Cool.
and understand, you know, what am I going to look like? What's this scene going to look like if I look through the?
Right.
Most of the time, most actors don't talk to crew guys.
Right. But you have that
But
history
I
and
always-
love of the old Hollywood too.
Well, I think that it just, you learn your craft that way. You know, you learn about lighting and you learn like, well, you know, where am I? Am I here? Are you here? Where, you know, how's this? What's the frame line? You know,
Right.
and then you learn how to play a scene You look you won't look right at the actor. You look just like right off, right there. Right there, then you're all emoted out.
I always remember there's a Michael Caine acting
video?
for the camera. I remember that. It's so
it is
good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It makes so much, and it's. I know exactly. Yeah, I've seen that. Have you ever seen that?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's pretty good, but it's true.
He's spot on.
Spot on.
What is it? What is he saying?
Well, it's all about he has so many techniques that he brings to you, and one of them is
and it's
that
so simple.
When you're doing a scene to the camera, you don't actually look to the camera; you look to the side of the camera. Yeah. It actually looks more natural than looking at the camera.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I love all those guys that he has, the students that he has in that video, where they'll do a scene from Alfie, and then he'll go, "Okay, this is how you do it." Of course, because you're Michael Caine. But
did you see Listen to Me, Marlon? Did you see that?
No.
It's on Showtime or HBO. Or you've seen it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's Brando. He taped himself his entire life almost. It's compelling because this guy really, everybody said, I just give a shit about acting. And he's talking to himself. He says, I don't want to be caught lying. I don't want to be caught acting. So the guy really did give a shit.
Does he say the horror?
Well,
he Colonel Kurtz joke.
Yeah.
Too soon.
But that's why Brando to do a movie like Countess from Hong Kong, because he wanted to get close to Charlie Chaplin.
That's right.
He wanted to,
right,
pick his brain.
But he didn't like it. The experience for him was not good because Chaplin treated his kids so shitty.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that Brando was disturbed by that.
Didn't he have a class? Now, I read an article.
Yes,
he
had a
crazy class.
He had a class, I think, for like Sean Penn. And it was only
Robin, I think, went to it as well.
Yeah, Robin Wright or Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
May have.
And that it was that he
would... You had to be invited or something.
Yeah, and he did all this crazy...
You had to be a big shot actor or something.
He would come in and be in makeup and do a dance and did all this crazy shit to kind of throw you off so you would then be natural and on your game.
Well, I'll tell
real.
you, when I used to live with Stella Adler, I was her servant and driver and butler type thing.
Wow.
And I drove her to the premiere of The Godfather. And the next month in class, she used to do Marlon. And she would do him. And then when you see him, I see him doing her. Because I spent so much time with her.
Wow.
But the way she would gesture,
Yeah.
the way she would think about things, and the way she would carry herself, and what she would talk about what the responsibility of an actor is. You have to be non-political if you're going to be an actor, because you have to understand both sides of the aisle, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And you can't be judgmental. So you have to write out the background of your character. And she was just a brilliant teacher. And everything he talks about is the same thing. And he became the actor that he is because of her, because she saw the talent in him.
Right.
And just said, okay, you have to develop this.
Brando at his most unusual, i.e., the island of Dr. Moreau, is
He's
still...
Charles Lawton. He's playing Charles Lawton.
But it's still...
Is he?
Well, that's what he said to himself. He said, yeah.
It's still compelling, and I would argue that he is fascinating in that movie.
And that movie gets... I know the whole history of that movie. It's supposed to be all the trouble with that movie. But that movie,
I don't care.
If you watch the movie as is, it's not that terrible.
No,
I liked it.
It's extremely entertaining.
Yes, it's strange and bizarre, and it goes off the rails a couple times, but it's still entertaining.
But that's what makes it unique.
Yeah,
and different than everything else you
Who's
would see.
that great British actor that comes on?
In the film?
Thieves.
Oh, David Thewlis?
David Thewlis, yeah. Mike Lee fame.
What's his name's phone and threw it in the water.
Val Kilmer?
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, I think Marlon
Probably had it coming, right?
I believe it.
Because, Brando, the transition is like Carl Malden, because I knew him slightly, and they were very good friends. But he said that on the waterfront, you just wouldn't have even recognized him because he was so high energy and such an eager beaver. And just,
Marlon.
Marlon was, not intense at all, and he was just finding this great. But he also said that it was so interesting to him, of course he knew Brando so well, that an actor like Brando, who has become synonymous with a certain approach, but every single scene in that movie, it's not just him with guys like Lee Cobb. He's in there with Marty Balsam. He's in with Leif Erikson, who everybody forgets is in that movie. Yeah. And James Westerfield and all these other guys all come from different backgrounds and different training and a different approach, and just melds beautifully. You know?
Perfectly. Yeah, seamlessly.
This friend of mine, Michael Priest, is a director and was Brando's script supervisor in like 5 or 6 of his movies. They knew him; they were pretty good friends. He said he was a funny guy, a real practical joker guy. Like on the Tea House of the August Moon, Glenn Ford had some kind of cookies that he had sent over to Japan or something, and Brando would always get them and eat them all, you know, or eat half
Very
the
Shatner-esque.
box just to fuck with Glenn Ford. You know, he was always putting people on.
That's funny.
And we're way off the subject, but
we also call this podcast Cookie Party because we like cookie talk.
But Tim, I wanted to ask you too, though, about you have had and continue to have this amazing career, and as far as genre films. You've done so many, and there is this kind of huge fan base for you.
This is something that I find so fascinating. Because Courtney tells me this every once in a while. There's a lot of people out there, and I get calls to go on conventions and stuff.
I want to know. I want to know about your take on that and what it's like, because you really do have a huge fan base.
Yeah,
what's it like to be part of Thomerson mania?
I mean, you could go to one of these conventions.
Catch my act at home. I'm always really, grateful, certainly, and really surprised that people even know that I was an actor, at one time, because I don't act anymore. I'm basically finito, and I just find it just unbelievable that people, that you bought this,
yes,
you're buying,
yeah,
this?
We did,
yes. And that might be the stand-up in me, that just. I don't know, but I grew up in a town in San Diego, so if somebody's looking at you funny, you go, what's the guy looking at, man? It's like, what's this guy? I did have a guy in Cleveland one time really giving me the stink eye. Really just, and a guy in Nashville one time, I left the bar, the guy was like size of Tex Cobb and Fred Dry rolled into one, and this guy... Like he was wanting to kick my ass big time. And I was sitting there with we were on the movie Rhinestone. I was sitting with this projector guy who just got out of the pen. And,
great.
I said,
you're looking at that guy.
I said, hey, man, is my imagination. Or is that guy? He said, if I were you, I'd get out of here. Wow. And so, because this guy, I don't know, he was beelining me for something. I don't know. But to answer your question, I'm always really surprised and grateful at the same time.
I would argue that for every person that looks at you and wants to kill you,
you think I'm a bitching guy?
Yeah, there are many more that love you.
Yeah. I'd love to see at a convention, sign some headshots, maybe make a few bucks. It'd be great, Do
you do conventions?
Well, a guy called me. Well, Mr. Mancini called me to go to Cherry Hill. Is the one?
Is that Chiller?
I think it's Chiller. There's two Chillers
in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. I've been there before, but I've done them. I was on that circuit for a while, but I got kind of burned out, and then my back is shot right now. I got some issues with my back. So.
Sure.
If fans come to you with a series of massages.
Yes, speaking of that, I spent a lot of time in Thailand.
Case by
there's
case.
a happy ending.
Yeah. Well, Tim, this has been great. I'm so glad that you...
And Courtney, too.
Thank you.
Yes, you guys
so
are
much.
great. We love you.
Nothing like being with a bunch of old teenagers.
Right. That's who we are.
That's right.
Tim, are you working on anything now? I see something in post-production on IMDb called "Bring Me the Head of Lance Henrikson."
Oh yeah, what is that?
Well, have you seen that?
No, we see it
says it's in post.
Lance, well, it is. Michael Worth. Well, there's another movie that I was proud of. It's called God's Ears. There's a kid named Michael Worth. If you punch him up, you'll know him, seen him around. He did, 2 or 3 movies for the Sci-Fi Channel. Mm-hmm. And he came up with this idea of me trying to figure out why Lance works so much. and I'm not working as much as I once did as an actor. And I can't. What is his mojo? And so it's got me sort of tracking Lance, like we're down here at the what's the place down there?
Oh, Dark Delicacies.
No, not Dark. Well, that's one. Dark Delicacies.
Creature Features?
No, they had the convention every Saturday down there.
Oh, the Shrine.
the Shrine.
The Shrine. There's got one of me. So Michael has this footage of it's not scripted. It's just Lance is signing. He's at a convention, and I'm kind of like this, going, Lance. Hey, Lance, it's me, Tim. And Lance is going up and goes, hey, I thought you were dead. And then he look. It's all there's no script at all.
Funny,
and he leans
though.
over to somebody signing. He says, "Hey, that's Thomerson. I thought did he die?" Hey, I'll be with you in a minute. And it's just us driving around and me going, Lance, how the hell? How did you get? How many? I'm not really asking him. It's just he and I driving around.
That's
and
funny.
me going up to his house, kind of stalking him, and he catches me going. He says, "What are you doing here?" I says, "Oh, nothing. I'm just I was in the neighborhood and I heard you were up here." He says, "Well, come on in and we'll talk." And then Michael's got us up in Vasquez Rock somewhere, and I'm walking around. I'm walking on his property. It's really funny. It just has.
That's
it's
awesome.
supposed to go
Sounds
in there.
great.
Oh.
Lance is lying in one of these little arroyos, and I'm walking around trying to find a back way to his house. And all of a sudden, he just pops in the frame. He goes, "What are you doing here, man?" Huh? What did he say? He said something like, "Are you looking for Van Damme?" Something like that. It's really funny because the thing about Lance Henrickson that a lot of people don't know, he's really a funny guy. I mean, he's a very intense guy, but he's very, very funny.
That's great. That's awesome.
And Michael's got this thing. He's been putting it together and cutting it and editing because he's always doing. Michael Worth will make a movie for $5,000.
Well,
definitely tell him.
That, yeah.
Definitely tell him
You
how.
should have Michael Worth come in. He's another movie nut.
We want everyone.
Oh,
on this
yeah.
Michael
thing.
Worth is
No,
great.
I don't know if we want
Look
everyone.
at that trailer, because
It's fun and good.
look at the trailer for Bring Me the Head of Lance Henriksen. I'm going to jump in here for a second.
Okay.
This thing is so sharp about aging in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's what
really?
it is.
It is, man, it is like a hot razor.
Yeah.
And I'll say this because I'm also in it, as myself, in a wonderful scene. It's the only time I'm ever going to act with Lance Henriksen and
that's
Robert
right, that
Patrick.
great line you have.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
So Joan, what was that line?
We're at the signing of Not Bad for a Human. Lance's
his
autobiography.
book. Yeah, right.
And Tim's standing there with me. And he comes up and he gives me the, "Hey, don't you think I'm worth an autobiography?" And I'm like, I basically tell him, "Why? Who wants to read that?"
He goes, "If Sigourney Weaver, for God's sakes," or something.
And then Mike shot a scene with me and Lance and Bob Patrick, and they're like, "Does Thomerson think his life is worth a book? Is that what's going on?" It is just, it's
pretty fun.
wonderful.
Oh,
it's
great.
so
Great.
sharp, but the trailer is amazing. Adrienne Barbeau is in it.
Oh, awesome.
And it's really, really well done. And boy, when you see it too, it's like, wow.
So the trailer is on YouTube.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Check this out,
Yeah.
Monster Party fans.
Yeah.
Michael is a kid that, he's not a kid, but he's just a very earnest guy. And there's a movie we did called God's Ears, and it's about an autistic boxer. There's a guy with autism who decides to leave his comfort zone, which is family ranch and up in California, Northern California, and he goes to Berkeley and starts taking boxing. And I'm his brother. I have autism also. And because Michael's girlfriend at the time was working with autistic children. When I asked Carrie, his girlfriend, I said, how should I play this guy? She said, well, I would just be you, just less social skills. So I'm the guy that you can't take out because I'll run up to somebody and start, "Hey, how you doing?" Where Michael's character is more, he's functioning and he's trying to function, but he uses boxing as the metaphor, and he meets a stripper, and it's a really heartfelt thing, and it's really well acted by this girl, Margot, and she's kind of a plus size girl, but super sexy, and it's pretty fucking good. Anyway, I would check it out.
God's Ears.
God's Ears.
However much of this you want to put in, but we should mention, God's Ears was produced by Steve Hayes, who wrote Time After Time.
I love Time After
That's
Time.
right, Steve Hayes. who used to live in Errol Flynn's bungalow.
Yes, he did.
Wow. And Courtney, I wanted to ask you, what do you have coming up? Any projects do you got going on?
Oh, my God. Where should you
Well-
start there?
Well, my little Western series from Pinnacle Books, the second Shotgun, hits Target and Walmart and Kmart and all those fun places on the 23rd of June.
Cool.
And then for next year, thanks to all the interest again in Jules Verne and stuff, my Nemo series, the first book, is hardback coming out from Macmillan. Nemo Rising is coming out.
Really good.
Yes, next year. So I keep telling myself, yeah, it's like Jules Verne if Don Pendleton had taken a shot at it. So that's kind of my approach. But,
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's very nice.
We're
And
very proud of Courtney. I've known Courtney a long time.
just staying out of jail.
That's right.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
thanks again, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yay! Thank
Thank
you.
the fans
Really
out there. I want to
wonderful.
thank you for all your support, whoever you people are. I don't know how you got in my living room, but goddamn it.
Blame us. Yeah, well, this really has been great.
This has been
And
awesome.
thank you so much for making the time for us.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Time for a listener shout out, perhaps?
I'll say.
Oh,
So-
a listener
You got to
shout
call
out.
in? People calling in?
You know, there are people that
They-
go
they
out
write
of their
reviews.
way
They write, like,
to
glowing
write reviews. And actually, we've been very surprised over the past few months, weeks, to get some really great
Yes.
reviews.
We have some fans, and I want to do a special shout out to a very special fan who left a review on iTunes
Okay.
under the name of Terry G.
Terry
G.
And I would like to just read this verbatim because it's very special and very heartfelt.
Okay.
And it starts now. Monsters don't fall within my random domain, but this podcast is so funny that I can't wait to hear what they discuss next.
Oh.
Especially Larry.
Yes!
In truth,
Yes!
In truth, I only listen to hear what Larry has to say.
Yes! Take that, Tom! Tim!
Tongue. You might be reconsidering this, Terry G. But anyway, she continues, poor Larry. I identify with him so much, but thank God I don't have a podcast recording my every rant for all eternity. Rock on, Larry. May I one day have the wherewithal to truly be myself in the same way you do.
Oh, Terry! That's
Terry,
awesome.
Terry G, that is lovely. And you know what? We give Larry a hard time, but we love him, I think, as much as you do. And I would also argue, please give us a chance. We're really trying. Apparently not as hard as Larry.
No.
But we're trying hard as well to win your affection. So if there's some way that you can contact us and give us your information, we'll send you a cap.
We'd love to send
we'll
you
send you a
a
cab.
cab. Yes.
Yeah, 'cause
that would be
that's-
great.
Yeah, we're going to send you a cab. Yeah.
That's
and then we're
great.
going to question some of your opinions. And
Which, no, they're all right. They are
No.
hit the nail on the head.
I tease, but I love Larry too.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
we all love
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But, let's also remind our listeners that you find us on Facebook at Monster Party TV, on Twitter at Monster Party HQ, and our YouTube channel, Monster Party TV. And again, if you like Terry G, if you're listening to us,
Terry G!
Terry G.
take a moment and write a review on iTunes. You never
Yeah.
know. We
Love
may
you, Terry
just,
G.
we may just
Weinhold
shout out.
is spelled W-E-I-N.
Terry, great job. Thank you. Thank you. Please keep listening. And you've been listening to Monster Party, a presentation of the Fangoria Podcast Network. It's produced by Thomas DeFeo and Matt Weinhold, and executive produced by Ken Hanley of Fangoria Entertainment. And for press opportunities, advertising inquiries, and information about Monster Party, contact ken@fangoria.com.
On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Sean Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
Watch anything that Tim Thomerson or C.COURTNEY JOYNER had anything to do with, because that is the seal of excellence.
Okay, everyone quiet. We're going to let Courtney do his thing.
I get a sack adjustment.
Yeah, make your adjustment.
Do it slower. Slower.
I got to stand up and read.
No problem. Please.
Oh, hey.
You know what? Maybe if you just took off all your clothes. It's that kind of party.
Circle jerk.
No. I can't go there. No.
Come on, it's Hollywood.
No, it's
North Hollywood.
We bring the West to North Hollywood.
I just sat right back on my fucking nut. You cabrón.
Oh,
okay,
man.
sorry.
You're doing great, by the way. You're doing great.
This is fantastic.
You're doing great.
Who was it that had the nuts like a camel?
Just fucking stay out of here, will you?
Edgar Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, Edgar Kennedy. Yeah.
Lawrence Tierney shared a dressing room with Edgar Kennedy.
What was that like?
And
Holy
he did.
fuck.
He said, Jesus Christ, he hung down to his knees. He's nuts like a couple of basketballs.